Izzy's got sponsored posts organised here from her sponsors. Maybe we can a quick shout out to Izzy's personal sponsor. Today is Balance Cleanse.
Balance Cleanse.
Tell us a little bit more about Balance Cleanse.
I will, and while I tell you about it, you can be in charge of sharing the live stream so it doesn't distract. So Balance Cleanse is absolutely the best bottled water that anyone could buy.
Wow.
It's so much better than its main competitor, Aqualove, who refused to sponsor us.
I've heard that.
I know. Terrible. But I quite like Balance Cleanse. It makes me feel balanced. It makes me feel cleansed spiritually. So I highly rate this. If you're in a rush, recycled bottle. If you're in a rush, you don't have your constant water bottle, and I don't know the other name for it, the reusable one.
The reusable one.
Then this is your next best option, and it's even it's made from Australian wildflowers.
Wow.
Oh, the water's made. It's pressed wildflowers into a liquid form. Is it just flavoured by Australian wildflowers?
It's infused.
It's infused.
It's infused with 4 wildflowers.
Sounds like science.
Have you tasted it yet? It might taste terrible.
No, I have. I quite like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do
Did
quite
your
like
strength
this.
go up by 10%?
I can't quite. I haven't.
Ooh.
I need a baseline.
Okay.
I've been messing around with my different water sources recently. So I need to have it for a whole year straight. Once they sponsor me, that will be possible, and I can give more specific details.
So if you were sponsored by this water company for one whole year, and we saw a 10% increase in overall performance, or even like listenership to the podcast, perhaps we could attribute it to Balance.
We absolutely could. In fact, if Balance,
that would be science.
It would be
absolutely.
science, and they could even be with me as I make it to the Olympics or World Championships. I mean, if I was a water company, I wouldn't jump on board with a sponsorship deal like that myself.
I did like how your voice changed to really professional as the podcast started.
It went from Rory, don't start yet
to Balance
We
Water.
have officially shared the podcast onto Facebook.
All right, we are live.
We are
live.
officially live. Let's go to the introduction.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Daily Combat Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Stockbridge, and joining me, as always, is Izzy Rossitano.
That's it.
God,
Hello.
I made a mess of that. Let's try that again. Joining me today is Izzy Rossitano.
What's up?
And Matt Hollywood Connolly. Now, I feel like I'm letting us down with these intros. Like there should be a little bit more build up. Like I should be making more of it. That former Olympic hopeful turned boxer. Here's Izzy Rossitano.
Still Olympic hopeful.
Still hoping.
That's the
I'm
ring
still
announcer
hoping,
in
Dave.
That's right, Balance
There's
Water.
still
There's
hope.
still a chance. There's still a chance. And Matt, that's not all of your qualifications when it comes to sitting here today. So you're a moderator on MMA Junkie,
I am.
which
I
is
did
the
not
US
know that.
Wow.
That was a little thing
What?
that just slipped out. Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely.
Just casually in our first podcast, I heard that. And how did all of that come about?
Yeah, being a fan of mixed martial arts, looking at the UFC, once I first saw that, it was like all other sports were like, I'm not watching anything else. I am only watching this. This is awesome. Best thing I've ever seen.
This is all the best bits of all the sports I like, all in the one thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And seeing sort of the growth of it, I mean, it started in 93 was the UFC, and seeing how like media got behind it and how they slowly started building up to the level that are at now. I mean, I think they sold the company for $4 billion.
Only $4
Indeed.
billion.
Only $4 billion.
I think that's a bit of a loss if you ask me.
Our next guest on the podcast is Steve Maxwell, who was a early investor in the UFC.
That's right.
And helped the Gracies get started. So stay tuned to that. That'll be on next week's episode. But
That's
sorry,
right.
man.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Thought I'd plug next week's episode.
Yeah, for
whilst
sure.
I'm
Good idea.
talking about
Good
it.
idea.
Do you want to talk about the water as well?
We could start by talking about water. Does anyone have any preferences for what water they drink?
As long as it's wet, I don't care.
As long as it's got hydrogen and oxygen, I'm
That's
fine.
right.
I hope you've got a sponsor lined up at the end of
I
all of
should.
this.
I thought, yeah. I'll have to think of who could be a good sponsor for an arm wrestler.
Yeah, that's right. They've
find
got to
out.
be out there.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, something to do with deep heat or some kind
ice
of
gel.
Physio
Maybe
cream.
ice gel.
Turmeric. There's got to be a turmeric manufacturer
I
out
bought
there.
some turmeric. Roman would be so proud.
Yeah.
Yep. Went out and bought some turmeric.
And did you notice any of the performance?
Haven't tried it yet.
10% stronger.
10%. That's the
rumor.
Don't know if it was the water or the turmeric.
Yeah. So no. So,
you got into the MMA.
Yes.
You're a young man, and you're looking at VHS videos
Old as now.
of UFC
It was VHS. No, it was DVD.
What?
It was first one I saw was UFC 40. It was Tito Ortiz versus Ken Shamrock.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
Only person I'd ever heard of before was Ken Shamrock from wrestling. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll watch this.
The Lion's Den.
That's who I'm going for because I only know him. And the Lion's Den. That's right.
Yeah.
So they had their fight. Tito came out. He looked cool and everything like that. He ended up winning the fight, dominated, completely smashed Ken. And
it was devastating.
It wasn't actually. Because I wasn't really invested in it. I didn't really know what it was.
Okay.
So it was.
I gave up on Ken Shamrock pretty quickly.
Yeah. Ken Shamrock.
Tito.
Yeah. So watching that, and then remember how on DVDs you used to have like the special features, and they'd have little bonus materials and stuff like that.
How good were they?
Yeah,
How good were the
It's
special
the only reason to
features?
buy one, really.
Yeah.
And you had to buy it. Like that
Yeah,
was it.
that's right. So in that, they had a lot of the training stuff that Tito was doing leading up to the fight. You know, he went up to Big Bear in California, and he'd cut himself off from everyone to commit himself.
Civilization.
Yeah, pretty much. This is like a high altitude place. You know, it's I think he bought it from Oscar De La Hoya. Took it real serious and trained really hard for this fight. They should have showed a lot of his background. I was like, I really like this guy. And then I watched a couple more of his and
Change your mind? Oh, no, you don't.
Yeah, that's right. Hate him now. And became a fan and, watched it through that. And so I sort of started around the UFC 40 onwards time, which might have been 97, something like that.
Yeah.
93 is when they actually started the UFC. But yeah, seeing that sort of growth and then, trying to find information about it online because it was still not grassroots, but it was not at that mainstream level.
Yeah.
There wasn't many websites around. There was Sherdog, there was UFCjunkie.com, which is what it used to be called.
Yeah.
It's now called MMA Junkie because a few other organizations started getting on board and used to just post on the comments of the articles. And it used to be that their site was just literally an article.
Thread.
Yeah, it was just one page and you just scroll down,
See what everybody else was saying.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Eventually they added the forums to their site and over a few years of being a member and contributing and that sort of thing, they said, hey, do you want to moderate? And
really? So they approached you? You got a message in the inbox one day saying, how about
what
you?
a happy day.
No. And what's involved in those responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the actual site, like the MMA Junkie site, but it's the forum side of things. So it's, managing that side of it. So it's discussion threads, and forums and that sort of thing.
So if somebody's getting a bit out of control, you kind of step in.
You step in.
The ban hammer gets dropped.
It's like those bouncer skills come to the fore.
Yeah. I do have a funny story though, because
Okay.
we had a guy that was harassing the main site on the comments for months.
A troll.
Months, yeah. Oh yeah, big time.
Who would have
But
thought on the internet?
Oh,
Yeah.
I was shocked. And I kept banning him, but he kept using fake IP addresses because you can. This is a little technical. You can ban
That's next
somebody's
level.
username and their email,
Yeah.
and then you can go next level and go IP address.
Yeah.
He was creating fake emails and then fake IP addresses, which was getting frustrating because I was spending a lot of time going through every person who had joined and then like, okay, no, that's that guy. Get rid of him.
Yeah.
No, that's the guy again. Get rid of him. Because you're just posting hateful, racist, vile comments on every article.
Just couldn't help himself.
For months.
But how
this
much did
went
he
on.
want to do this? I mean, it's obviously a passion for him.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to enormous effort.
Absolutely, for sure.
That is next level.
Yeah, for sure. But he had written in the forums a couple of times. So I was like, I need to find out who this guy is. And I can't backtrack because these IP addresses are fake. They're randomly generated ones. So I went back. This is like an investigation. I was like, I'm determined to get this guy. Went back through all of his forum posts and found the first account that he'd signed up with. I was like, okay, this is the first one. It's like the earliest post that he's
Ground
made.
zero.
That's right. This is where it all began.
Detective. So just a bit of background here. So Matt is a moderator on a website called MMA. No, Yes,
Yes.
currently
MMA
MMA
Junkie.
Junkies.
This is the
.com,
US
yeah.
Today.
.com.
USA Today.
And this
USA
is the
Today.
life of a moderator
That's right.
on
full on.
MMAjunkie.com. This
Exactly.
is
I don't think anyone else would
completely-
do this, but
This is
yeah.
very interesting. Yes, so do go on.
This
so
is
this
a
is how
behind the scenes
this is a
expose.
undercover. Yeah, it's an
This was war.
expose.
Yeah,
This is war.
absolutely. It was
all right,
war,
please.
yeah.
All
Rory,
right.
is this an exclusive?
This is an exclusive.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. So you've gone back now in time to the beginning, the very first account that this
Very
troll
first
made.
one, that's
Tell us
right.
about it. What was the day like? Was it rainy? Was it gloomy? Was it cold?
It was a dark cloud. It was overhead for him. No. Yeah. So he found the first one. Looked through all the posts. He posted maybe 40 times under that account before something had happened. He got into an argument with somebody, and eventually, that's where I guess the turn happened, and he turned to the dark side and started getting aggressive and got that
So he
account
started
banned.
off. He was cool.
Yeah.
Like he was just a normal guy.
Was a normal
He was a
guy.
normal guy.
Normal
Wow.
human.
And then something happened. Were you able to
Something
nail it
must
down
have
to a
happened in this
moment
man's
or a
life.
comment? Or?
He seemed to have a big problem with one of the authors on the. We got the music going.
Is that background music? Are you setting the scene? This is suspenseful
Oh, this
music.
is for drama. Should we just pause for a moment?
Can we have
and-
some rain? Oh wait!
we
This
go.
is getting too much for me. What's happening? Dave's got his phone out. What?
The dark cloud.
Dave knows something about this guy.
Yeah.
We got
We've got him on the
suspenseful
line.
music.
And
We've got him on the line.
Here he is. He's
Here
in
he is.
studio.
Okay.
so
Yes.
we're at ground zero. You've isolated the guy,
Yes.
and you've read through his first 40 comments. He
Yep.
seems like a normal guy, just a normal guy who's commenting on the MMA, and then something happened.
He got banned.
He got banned,
And since
he got a
then-
bit nasty. He got into an argument.
I think from what I remember, he was attacking one of the authors of the site personally.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So
Yeah.
it turned personal.
Yeah,
It got ugly
For him, it did. Yeah.
Right,
I
okay.
don't think the actual author knew anything. He
anything
doesn't
was-
read the comments. For me, it was personal.
The life of a moderator.
That's
You
right.
take it on for the author.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was more fun for me than anything. I'm like, can I find out who this is? And yeah, so I found the original account, and it had his actual email.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But it wasn't like a name. It was like,
Damn.
Yellow Snake 50 or something.
Okay.
stupid like
Gotta
that.
watch out for
Yeah,
snakes.
That's
Pretty
right.
Butterfly 1984.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That's
okay.
right.
Yep.
Hot Ranger. So I did a reverse search with that email address. Here we go.
Yeah,
It's come
it's
back.
building up,
That's
isn't
right.
it? Yeah.
I can't take suspense is killing me. How the hell do you even do a reverse
Oh,
search?
no.
All right, go on.
Well, basically, you copy the email, you paste it in Google,
Oh my
and you see
God.
what comes up. But no, I found out some other forums that he'd posted on. So a little bit more information. Gathering. The board, the pin board started getting a few more sheets on there.
So you're coming home at night, the dining room table has pushed to the side, and the portraits of the family have been
I can
taken
totally
down.
see this.
And there's post-it notes.
It's like Russell
Your
Crowe
wife
in A
comes
Beautiful
home,
Mind.
it's like, what happened, honey? What happened?
Like, I'm one step closer. I'm going to find him.
So is your family falling apart at this stage?
I don't know. I don't remember a lot about the rest of that.
That particular part of my life.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, so you reverse searched
I did.
email.
I did. Found him the same username in a lot of other forums. And he revealed a slight bit of personal information.
Just enough.
Just enough to pull on another
Do you
thread.
recall? You might
Was
not
it
want
Logan
to.
I
Paul?
remember exactly
Was
what
it
it was.
Logan Paul?
Can you say it without incriminating?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Oh my
excellent.
gosh.
So
Tell us the vital key.
Yes, so he had said it was about where have you lived previously was the thread. And
That's
he
sweet.
wrote, I've lived in Texas, in Ohio, and somewhere else. I know, somewhere else. Seattle, let's say.
Seattle.
And I was like, okay, that's interesting.
So you ran some quick maths.
Yeah, that's
in your
right.
mind. and-
Yeah, for sure. Eventually, it got down to I remember I was looking at the US White Pages site.
This has gotten deep.
This is the best story I've ever heard about the internet. Oh my gosh. All right, so do go on. So you've got the white pages. So you've
Yes.
ordered it from America, a nice big white pages
Oh,
book like this
luckily-
thing.
An original.
Luckily,
Oh,
they've
you
got
went
it
to your
online
local
now.
library.
I went to my local White Pages website
Website.
page.
Okay. Okay.
And yes,
Flown to Texas.
used all the
No.
information. That's right. Packed my bags, my guitar, my shotgun.
Took out my second passport from the office. Okay, yeah, no, go on. So, okay.
Yeah. Oh, we got a ticking time bomb. We're tracking everyone now. Yeah. So anyway, on the white pages, through the email and the amount of data that I managed to collate, I was able to find somebody that matched. And
You
it was
profiled
like-
him.
Yeah,
You profiled him.
And on the white pages, it gives you previous addresses that they've lived at. And I was like,
Ah.
Texas, Ohio, Seattle.
Get
I'm
out of
like,
here.
This is the guy.
This is my man.
This is who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kidding me.
Found the town that he's living in. I'm like, great. I
Oh.
found the town. Didn't have the address for him, but I started looking through all the towns, like their Facebook pages, their local jiu-jitsu clubs, their local kickboxing clubs.
And you were on the trail.
looking
Yeah.
for anything and everything that would match this guy. Found the name. We won't say the name.
Okay. I was kind of hoping you were going to.
Oh, I can if you can. If you want me to, but he might love.
We
the
don't
fact
want to
that he's
upset
getting
him.
attention.
Yeah.
Let's not give him the platform.
Let's-
We don't
yeah.
want to give him another reason to win shit.
No, that's right. So found the name. Did search in that town. Anyway, tracked him down. Found.
Flew to America.
Yeah, that's right. Found who it was. I got him. Great. Did a Google search. Found his house. Photo, Street View, house, cars, friends, neighbours, relatives, everything. Sent it to MMA Junkie and said, "This is your guy. This is the one who's been," because they were frustrated with him by this point.
Yeah.
Every article they would put up was just, getting attacked.
Wow.
And then they sent him a cease and desist letter from their lawyers, and never saw him again.
Never heard of him again. That's amazing. What a great story.
Yeah.
Matt,
So-
I think you should really be a PI. Is that what they call it? A personal inspector or a
Personal investigator.
personal
yeah.
investigator.
Yeah.
I think you should be like Liam Neeson.
Have you got like a long
Wow.
trench coat and a cigar and a hat? Like
Just
if
took
you're
it off when
If
I came
not,
in.
we
yeah.
can organise
all
that
that.
through our sponsors.
It's
That's
crazy.
incredible. So I guess the moral of that story is don't troll our page.
Yeah.
That's
I will
very
find
definitely.
you.
Yeah,
I will
we
find you.
track
You can hide
down.
behind your IP changes and everything. You'll slip up
incredible.
somewhere and I will find it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they must love you over there at MMA Junkie.
They were pretty happy. They sent me like a little pack of stuff, because they're
Deserve that stuff,
Oh
Matt.
yeah, that's
You
right.
really do.
Yeah, it was because they attend all the UFC events with the press credentials. They sent me a whole heap of their badges and
The
shirts,
lanyards and
yeah,
everything.
exactly. So that was kind of cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I was
That's
more happy
awesome.
that I found him.
That would be really nice when you found him.
yeah.
I can't believe you did an amazing job, really.
Yeah.
I think any government would love you for their security. Like,
ASIO, if you're
ASIO,
watching.
ASIO, ASIS, FBI, CIA.
It is strange that people don't realize
Illuminati.
how easy it is to find out a whole ton of information about a person. And they might say, okay, I've talked about this with a couple of friends, and they're like, oh, well, my profile said I'm private. You wouldn't be able to. I'm like, okay, give me 5 minutes. And I'll be like, here's what I found, and here's a photo of you, your parents, their income, your income. This is that. The photo of your house. Da, da, da. It's all there. It's not like I'm doing. It's available for anyone to find it, and you'd really have to be diligent to prevent it. And if you've got your stuff set on private, doesn't mean your friends also have their stuff set on private. Your friends have taken photos with you or something.
So get a VPN. That's some advice that you can share with people.
Yeah.
Or it won't work.
Well,
If you're looking for them, it won't work. But maybe no.
Would that help?
That's a workaround.
it would help slightly, but no,
Just slightly.
not enough. No way,
Not enough.
I don't know about
Huh.
that.
Virtual private network is
Yeah.
so that your internet service provider, so whoever you're with, say Telstra, if you're at home on your internet, when you connect to the internet, it goes through your Telstra provider and then goes to the website. So that provider has a history of everywhere that you've accessed. If an organisation wants to put a search warrant in and say, we want to see Isabella's search history.
Yeah.
What best water sponsors? Why won't anyone sponsor me? How to get sponsored
That's
by Puma or Nike?
Then they have to hand it over.
How to make the Olympics? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. So a VPN is so
Why
you go,
won't anybody love me?
please love me.
How to tell? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, go on.
So with a VPN, a virtual private network, you go from your computer at home. It connects.
So lonely.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I better stop.
Beanie or hat.
What hat word should I wear today?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
Yeah, sorry. Do go on about the
that's
VPN.
okay. Yeah, it's fascinating. No, not really. Anyway, it's just a way so that if you're at your house, it connects to the virtual private network, and then you still get access to the internet, but your provider can't see where you've been. That's basically all that does, but it doesn't help if you put photos of yourself on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? The other thing that's really interesting about VPN providers is that none of them sponsor the podcast yet. So, and there are many of them.
There is.
So,
That's a real shame.
if you're a VPN provider out there and you like what Matt's just been talking about, then now's the time to jump on board the Daily Combat podcast. So Matt, that's obviously not everyday life as a moderator on MMA. Well, I certainly hope it's not.
Who else have you tracked down?
So
Have you
is
worked
it-
for any
it's-
organisations?
So generally speaking, it's just to ensure that the tone of the conversation that's going on there in the comments thread is fair and reasonable, and people aren't getting too much out of control.
Pretty much, yeah.
But what's it like for you as an MMA fan? Is it the perfect excuse for you to keep on top of everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
The good thing is, like, I'm on that site every day.
Anyway,
And,
you would have
yeah.
been on there anyway. I'm
That's
guessing.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
for sure. And then, taking a little bit more responsibility as to let people that are coming here, what sort of experience do they want to have? Do we want people on here that are just horrible, nasty, evil, arguing with everyone every day? I don't want that. I don't want people on the site that when I go to it, it's always a negative experience, because the only people that are going to stay there are people that are going to also argue back and forth, and you just get a site of just pure hate, and it's like, this is horrible. No one wants to come here. So, trying to identify that, remove that, or even just approaching. We had a guy that's joined recently, and he, obviously intelligent guy, writes well, but just combative and passively aggressive and argumentative. So just sent a private message, just said, well, mate, I could see you're smart. You're a smart guy, and you're making valid points, but you're just doing it really aggressively. So
He's a
make the
big
same
fella.
points, but do it in a constructive way, like a conversation. It's like, well, I don't actually agree with your opinion because of these reasons, but I respect that you see it that way.
Yeah.
That's rather than you're an idiot, you're wrong.
I will find you and
I will track you down.
I mean, look, for you, maybe what we should be doing every week is like Matt's top 5 from MMA Junkie. I mean, it seems like he's reading it all anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're keeping up to date with the MMA world. What are the latest trends? What's going on in that world this week?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is for me, like, since getting into arm wrestling, that has been the focus, which is strange, because I thought, nothing will ever replace the UFC for me. It's like when that came around, I remember, because I used to watch a bit of football, a bit of cricket, this and that. UFC was there. I'm like, no, everything else. I'm like, nah. And I watched everything, all the Ultimate Fighter series, and it was awesome seeing the growth from where it started, because it used to be just one pay-per-view event every 4 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And it used to be stacked cards. You knew every single fighter that was on the card, because it only came. Everyone would that also was into it. We'd have these big get-togethers to watch it. It's like, when's the UFC on? It's on there 3 weeks Sunday at my place. You're going to be there. Yeah, awesome. And you'd have 50 people there, and it was a big event.
It was a big event. I remember my best mate was into it really early on, and so he'd gone down and got UFC 1 and 2 on VHS from the local deli, and returned, and we put it on. It's grainy, and we watched it, and it was like, this is because there was no rules. It was like, it was real Wild West stuff, and you had little guys against big guys, and Hoist Gracie winning. It was the whole hero story. It was amazing, and then like 3 or 4 events in, the word started cotton on about the UFC, and you went on a waiting list when the video came out. You might have to wait 2 weeks before you could get the video.
Damn.
And then you watched it, and somebody wouldn't have rewound it all the way, so you spent the first 20 minutes rewinding it, and then you get to watch it. And it became huge, and then it dropped away. And it seemed to all of a sudden the video stopped, and it was really hard to get any information on it. And it was that period where the UFC stopped being sanctioned.
The dark ages.
The dark times fell.
Yeah. So what happened with that is, UFC was around. It ran to about maybe 15, 20 events throughout the country, and then a lot of politicians jumped on and said, "Oh, this is human cockfighting.
Really?
We can't have this." And
Really? It was blacklisted
it
from
got
Australia.
banned.
It was
Well, not
blacklisted
from
in a lot
Australia,
of
but
states,
from-
and right up
yeah.
until recently, even in New York, up until the last 18 months maybe.
Yeah,
I think they
yeah.
had their first one about 18
Yep.
months ago in New York.
So-
The union stopped it from happening there.
Yeah, so they blacklisted it, and then it went underground because they couldn't hold it in hardly any of the states.
Couldn't
I think
get a pay-per-view.
Yeah,
couldn't
that's
get-
right.
yeah.
And Tito Ortiz carried
Wow.
it through those dark ages with these papers. No. So eventually they sold it, and Dana White, who was managing Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell at the same time, found out that they were going to sell it. They were massively in debt, and he approached his childhood friends who were billionaires who own a casino, the
Love it
Fertitta
when-
brothers.
When your
Oh,
childhood friends are billionaires.
that's right.
It's
Yeah.
helpful.
We all need one of those. So they own casinos, and Dana White approached them and said, "I think we should buy the UFC. I think this is why. I think that it's undervalued, and we could make it into something awesome." Obviously, it's banned everywhere, and it's losing money.
That's
so
a smart man.
yeah.
Or woman, because I'll be real with you, the whole time I read his name as Dana, I was always thinking it was a woman.
Ah,
And then I was seeing photos of this Dana, and
Yeah.
it was a man. I'm so confused.
yeah, he's a man.
Thanks for the
And
confirmation.
what a man. Yeah, so they hired a guy, Mark Ratner, who used to work for the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and he wrote them up a unified list of rules that they could then present to athletic commissions and say, this is a legitimate sport with legitimate athletes. These are the rules that they are participating under.
And that's really important because there weren't rules early on, and there weren't even weight divisions.
Nope.
So it was freak show fights essentially,
Yeah, that
which was part of the
sounds-
excitement,
Yeah.
but also part of the brutality that
Yep.
that ensued as well. And so these rules were formulated to essentially legitimise the sport in the eyes of all of the sporting commissions.
Exactly, that's right. So they managed to get it, legalized in say Nevada, and then they went to California and they got it done there. Eventually, working their way through the states, and as it grew in popularity, because it is an awesome thing to see, and the way that they went about it, and they had really high production value, and they were putting on really good events. They were able to then continue to expand, and it wasn't until New York was the last one on the list, and I think they had some issues with the culinary union there. That was
The culinary union.
culinary union.
I'm just thinking about utensils now. Like,
That's right. A very strong union that put up a big stink about getting the UFC there. I don't know. There was a
But
big
wait, sorry, are
battle.
we talking about actual like crockery and
Yeah,
that sort of
yeah, like
Why-
food and beverage union or
Because,
hospitality union.
Why
Hospitality,
did they
yeah.
throw a?
So
I think there was some because Zuffa, which is the owners of the UFC at that time,
there was non-union.
it was non-union.
Their casinos were non-union, and so that union in New York continued to. That was a very powerful union. You can imagine the hospitality union in New York very much being
Yeah.
powerful. We're blocking it at a local level.
Wow.
Yeah, so it took a long time to get through, and it was just crazy because it's 49 out of 50 states, and it's like, well, Madison Square Gardens, New York, they've had the history of what the world's biggest boxing matches there, and it's like, what are you doing? Let us in, but obviously it has to go through the political side of things. So it has to be voted to here, voted to there, and then agreed upon by this, and voted, and it took ages. But eventually, now they're there, and they held their matches. I think the first one they held,
Conor
was it?
McGregor.
Yeah, it might have been Madison Square Garden, and huge
Yeah, that's
events.
right.
So
Yeah.
they were able to get things back on track. But yeah, there was a dark period. But one of the big things that really helped them step back into the mainstream or get the attention, because I think they were still struggling. And
Struggling until they could get pay-per-views. Essentially, that was a big
Yeah.
barrier for them.
it was The Ultimate Fighter first season, which was, I don't know if you've seen that show at all, but it's sort of like Big Brother with fighters.
Yeah, it's a reality TV show.
Yeah,
but
but-
at the end, somebody becomes a UFC fighter.
Yeah, so the idea
That's
was,
sick. I want to
I
go
think
on
that's-
that.
Yeah,
it was like
you'd like the idea of that.
it was like, I don't know, 20 guys living in a house, and they would train with Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell.
That's awesome. We need more shows like that.
Yeah,
I'd go on
absolutely.
that show. Yeah,
I think
go
they've got one for boxing. The Contender, I think Stallone was involved in that or something. You're like, how did I not hear about this? How do you not know this as a boxing fan? Yeah, so, but they would be separated to teams, and then the teams would compete, but they would live in the house. So you sort of had a reality TV aspect to it, and they also would have a fight at the end of every episode.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was going right. I think they spent a lot of money on it, and the ratings weren't fantastic, but the finale, which was Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner, that fight this is a key thing, free to air. It was on free to air TV, so anybody could watch it. And that fight was phenomenal. One of the best fights ever, and still one of the best fights ever.
Defining moment for a lot of reasons.
What year was this? Because I just checked, and The Contender unfortunately did wrap up filming in 2005.
It was probably 2000, something like that.
So this is around 2000. Because
early 2000s.
from my perspective, UFC kicked off like, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say, but probably like in my head, I would say around like 2012. So to hear it was 1993, I could see Dave's reaction there. Please don't kick me off the show. I'm a boxing fan, number one. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So to actually hear this history of UFC from someone who's seen it come out from social media and pretty much like Ronda Rousey headlining things, that was my first introduction.
Wow. That's interesting, isn't it? You know, you have these superstars that
really interesting to
punctuate the consciousness at different times.
Exactly.
And for different reasons.
There's key moments that you can see in the history. It's like, here is where this happened that allowed them to grow to here.
The first woman.
That's right. And then this happened, which allowed, and the expansion. So, 2012's first time that you heard of it, and that was through Ronda Rousey, but before that it might have been for me with Tito Ortiz, and before that it might have been
Hoist Gracie, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu taking on giants and winning, and
that's right.
And people go, how did he do that? It was amazing.
Absolutely.
The world hadn't been exposed to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu yet as well.
No, that's right.
It was the UFC.
It's like a superpower.
It was very much a superpower.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But that Ultimate Fighter finale. So because it's on free to air TV, the ratings, because this fight was so awesome and it was really close and really back and forth, and they were both getting rocked, and like you're like, oh my god, it was that. Any second one of them is going to fall, but then he would come back, and then he would come back, and it was just
sounds epic.
Yeah, and the ratings for that just kept going up, and you could see obviously people were watching it, ringing their friends, going, "You got to put this fight on! It's amazing! You got to see what." And at the end of that, they announced Forrest Griffin was the winner of the contract. To get a 6-figure contract with the UFC. But because six-figure contract,
which is 100,000, not $1 million,
over a lot of fights. But
it sounds like a lot. It's not 6 zeros; it's 6 figures.
That's right. So Forrest Griffin was the winner, but because the fight was so awesome, they also gave Stephen Bonner a contract as well, and rightfully so.
That is so sweet. I love that. Yeah. That's really nice.
Yeah, I think it should have been a draw. I think they should have gone sudden death round. But that was a really big pivotal moment that helped them, because so many people saw that and they're like, what is this UFC thing?
Now, it's really interesting to think, because there isn't really another sport that you can think of that's been elevated as a result of packaging itself better in that way. So it was really making it accessible to the whole fight audience, rather than this real narrow band of mixed martial arts enthusiasts that were it was a niche, it was such a small niche, and then all of a sudden a fight like that all fight fans can watch and enjoy is the thing that punctuated mainstream consciousness and
for sure.
and brought it about. And it very much is that reality TV show. Like, can you think of another sport that's just gone nuts after a reality TV show?
I would argue, or add in here, like almost CrossFit. Through that reality, I first discovered CrossFit, I'm pretty sure, from that documentary they did on Netflix.
Okay, right.
Can't remember the name of it, but I wouldn't say, definitely not as successful. No other combat sport, number one. Agree with you there. And number two, probably not to the same level of success that we've seen UFC. Like, as I said, like, we all discovered it at different points. But for me, it was obviously like almost 2 decades past when both of you discovered UFC, which says a lot.
And so what happened there? Did you know about Ronda Rousey? Had you come across MMA before? Were you even a fight fan at that stage?
No, I'd say like just boxing. Oh yeah, always a boxing fan. Like Rocky was. I know Rocky's a fictional character. Don't tell me that.
What? Don't. No.
But I mean to say, like from Rocky, I got into
It's a reality TV show. That's what I thought it was.
Right, you mean Rocky's not real? No. But from Rocky, I started watching, like, if there was a big fight on, I'd watch that.
Yeah.
But UFC specifically, I think I just can't recall. I can just remember my earliest memory of UFC being Ronda. And being like,
And what about
that's
Ronda?
sick and I want to fight
Seeing her fight?
Yeah, seeing her fight, I
and
was
dominate?
like, yeah, definitely. I was like, A, I want to fight her one day. And B, I was like, she's awesome.
Yeah.
She's so cool. Like they explained that she'd been to the Olympics. She'd been on a
She's
college
a judo,
sports scholarship. Yeah.
Judo champion. Yeah.
And she'd had a really interesting life. And actually, the reason I wanted to fight her is when I first watched her, the media presented her in a really arrogant light. They really made it big and they really hammed it up. But as we know, the media always, occasionally, I don't know. So sometimes things aren't as they appear. And sometimes people play a character like maybe Connor or trying to think of someone who maybe, there are some characters out there who are played as such. But then I watched a documentary that was centered at that. The cameraman was following her around and interviewed her coach. Can't quite remember the name of it. But after watching that, I was like, wow, she's really down to earth. And she's had this incredible thing where she was training, like I used to train in a few gyms where it's all guys and she did the same thing. So that was really big for me, like to see that she didn't care and it was more about being equal in the fight gyms with everyone there, no matter gender, no matter anything like that.
Yeah.
And that really inspired me massively.
And were you boxing yourself at this stage?
No, I only got really into boxing after I stepped away from canoeing.
Right.
This was like year 12, but this is when remember when I first got the offer for the sports draft scholarship, I put in, when I was going in the process of it, my first option was combat. It was always combat.
Right.
So obviously, they were desperate for female canoeists.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a number of reasons why I would have been chucked in there, but had I had a choice, that was my first choice. So that's what I wrote down. So my life could have gone a bit differently. Knowing that I've got the love for combat, there's no doubt in my mind that had I been training in a combat sport earlier on, it would have been a bit different. But I've learned a lot from canoeing. So.
Where does that intrinsic love of combat come from, do you think?
The fight. Don't we all love a fight? That's the best bit about combat.
Have you had fights when you were younger?
My 6'3" guy, my first fight. Come on, you can't forget that.
No, but
I just kissed the microphone and then that was a lovely experience. Sorry, Rory.
No, you're going to fight the microphone in a second.
When you're younger and you're in year 11 or year 12, you're seeing Ronda Rousey on TV and you think, wow, I like what I see there. Had you done any fighting at that stage, or was it just a matter of, I love boxing, I love the idea of it, and that's something for me one day?
Well, it's definitely crossed my mind. A number of people I would have loved to have punched in the face, but I refrained from doing so. So no, I did not fight. I just avoided the conflict as much as possible. So yeah.
And what changed for you that to all of a sudden want to be in the conflict to
going through and realizing that I didn't have to kind of get approval to do the things I wanted to do.
So
that took me way too long to realize. It was
Was there like a resistance? Did you feel like if you were telling people that I want to be a boxer, did you feel there was going to be pushback from your support network? Or
I think it was because I realized at the end of canoeing, like I'd done, like as I said, it got pretty cloudy or pretty not fun, not enjoyable for the majority of it. And when it got to the end of that, I kind of realized I'd been listening to all these influencers tell me what to do. And I realized it had been to the detriment of kind of my time and my life. And I thought, as I said, I'd always had a passion for boxing and for fighting. Like for combat sports to me, I've said it, they're like the epitome of sport for me. So the Olympic values of friendship, excellence, respect, I think we see all of those things in combat sports. As we've discussed in earlier podcasts, some sports have bigger egos. Every sport attracts a culture to it. It's so interesting having done multiple sports. I can tell you, there's a certain type of person who does a different sport. It's really interesting. Even, you've got different international people, but they have the same mindset per sport. It's very interesting. And I guess for me, I kind of realized like I had that love and stuff. For me, canoeing, even though I kind of always felt like it wasn't going to quite work out, especially towards middle of canoeing, I'm like, it's not going to work out, but I got to get to the end of this. I can't look at it as a waste, but if you love something and you spend all your time on it and you don't reach your goal, at least you loved it the whole time you're doing it, and you've got all these other benefits because you love it.
And you weren't feeling that with canoeing, but you felt
I wasn't
that
getting so many things that you can get from sport. So sport can give you, so many positive things. The only thing I was really, there was a very limited amount of positive things, and the balance of positive and negative, I was getting so many more negatives out of doing it. But I had that one goal, like I've got to get to the end of I have got to go to the Olympic trials. Absolutely. I've got to. That's what I've got given a scholarship for. I've been given an opportunity. I can't not see that through for the people who've given me that opportunity. That was the biggest, I think that was the biggest reason why on reflection I couldn't quit.
So you kind of felt the burden of responsibility to carry this through.
Yeah. And I don't know, like sometimes like afterwards I was a bit like down thinking, did I just waste 5 years of my life? Did I just waste that because I had that feeling? And in sport, it's so time limited. If I'd spent the last 3 years doing boxing, learning my footwork, learning my technique, and it's so much technique, learning how to access my strength, which is any sport, but very much so in a combat sport. Yes, I'd be better off. I think about the time I've invested in canoeing and the skill I have. It's not transferable to much at all. The only thing is the upper body strength I got. What can I transfer from that? Yeah. Whereas, as I said, something like boxing, let's flip the tables. Let's say I'd been doing boxing and I didn't make the Olympics for Tokyo.
Yeah.
I'd have fight skills.
Yeah.
I'd have boxing skills. As a coach, I can tell you, everyone loves a boxing PT or a boxing coach. So that's another income stream. I'd have a much better chance at having sponsors. I'd have the opportunity to now go and fight professionally and earn an income.
Yeah.
And then more so the biggest one for me would be, as I said before, I'll say it again, every single combat gym I've walked into, it's a family. And I'd have a family of people that, that'd be my family. So.
But one of the benefits of you doing 5 years of kayaking is that your right arm is now longer than your left. And so that's going to help with the jab. That's
for real. No, for real. God damn it. We'll fight you. I definitely agree. There are lots of positives, like physically, aside from my clicking shoulder. You want to hear that. But aside from that, my possibly torn labrum.
Right.
No. I do agree massively. Yeah. And also like my balance. And that's actually something I was thinking about. Maybe that's why boxing came to my mind halfway through canoeing was like in the canoe, my right leg is forward and my left leg is back. And I thought, because I had issues with my hips. I was constantly had really bad injuries after injuries and, I always thought I could even out my body. We became lopsided, me and my training partner, after like 3 years of canoeing. It was quite funny. We were lopsided. Wow. After about 2 years, we said to our coach, we're becoming a bit lopsided. Can we deter that? Like, can we change the program, the strength and conditioning program? Because like one side of our hips looked different. Wow. Because we spent so much time lunging in one position, right? So we looked physically different. And we noticed that because we're girls. We're like, hey, we look different. And the coach was like, no. Awesome Polish guy. Really funny. He's like, no, girl, don't be silly. And then like...
In Poland, we see very attractive.
And then...
Canoe rolls you.
And then eventually... Then one day he was just like, okay. And then he told us straight. It was really funny. Like one day I just remember his face.
Just looked in, we got to party.
This is not good.
We need a doctor.
It's pretty funny because like one of my hips is still slightly different to the other. So it's just like more indented. It's just the way it is. Like I don't know whether it's, I don't know, God knows. Anyway, but.
Punch easy in the hip. That's what you're going.
No, but it's interesting because we saw Ryan last week with his one arm more bigger than the other. That's a similar
very, very
thing.
common.
Very similar. I mean, obviously that's what happens. We adapt.
Yeah.
But that was another train of thought for boxing for me was I can even out my body. I can even out, and that's kind of happening. So that's pretty good.
Was canoeing fun to start with?
Yes, absolutely. The funnest thing about canoeing was
falling off.
Yeah, it was. It was so fucking difficult. I'm sorry about my language. But the thing about canoeing is, and this is what like no one fucking realizes until they see my boat and they're like, oh shit. Damn, like...
But had you done canoeing before you started?
Never.
So this is almost like so essentially you've gone to the Australian Institute of Sport.
Yep.
You've done some tests and they've gone, you know what, canoeing. And you've gone, sure.
Yeah.
Is that pretty much it?
Yep, that's
and then
exactly
they've gone,
what happens.
and then you're all of a sudden, so you're learning under the guidance of elite canoeists, coaches,
Yep. Yeah,
and you're
really
thrown
nice
into the deep end. So almost like the reality TV show, like
It
you're
was.
just thrown in there, and it's like in 4 years we expect medals.
It was like that. It was a huge burden. Yeah.
And one hip should be big.
One hip much bigger than the other. Yeah, it was. It's funny, and that's one positive I've really got to take from it is I've got to remind myself, like everyone else I was competing against for a position, especially for the Olympics, they've been involved in kayaking, a similar, like almost, it's another water sport that's very in a similar boat. For about 10 years or something, like since they were 13, since they were young teenagers. So then here I was, this random 19-year-old thrown in with a mix of people who'd been together for 5 years, which says, a bit. And then suddenly I'm competing with them for a spot on the Australian team.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see that and understand their perspective.
So there's a little bit of resentment.
Definitely. There would be a lot. There would have been a lot because not only were we teammates, but we're competing for the spot together.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really big thing that that could have been kind of maybe acknowledged and worked through, but it wasn't.
Yeah, just on a structural
from a structural perspective. 100%. There was no initiation like, hi, welcome to the Sports Institute. This is what we expect from you. I never had that. So no one ever told me like the general expectations or cultural things that I should be aware of.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of trying to do my best. And yeah.
When did it stop being fun?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think, if I'm perfectly real, the first coach I had before I had an Australian level or an institute level coach, they put us in with like a state development coach. Unfortunately, the state development coach was abusive, and not just towards me, but to a lot of people. But I was the one who fucking spoke out about it. And this is one of the biggest things I thought about, because I thought about, like, when I reflect on it, was it worth speaking up against this? And first off, I got to say, I don't want any sympathy, and it's no way. I'm not a victim. I'm not none of that. But when I look back at it, that was the moment when things changed culturally for me. So when you raise your head's on the chopping block. I'm the one who did that, and.
So you felt that culturally within the guidance that you're receiving and the general vibe around the place wasn't all that it could be, and you spoke up about that, and as a result of speaking up about it, your relationship with those people around you changed.
So to be more precise, like, this guy was kind of sexually abusive and harassing, like that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
not just
and
towards
was that
me.
known at the time, like within
No.
the circles? Or
I'm not quite sure it was known. It was definitely known. A lot of my teammates were like, he was
So
going
people let
off
it.
it. Yeah, like, it's fine to say, to try and be a tough coach. That's one thing. But to be sexually harassing and to be making comments that are like pretty bad, pretty degrading, and
Right.
that sort of thing. It was pretty bad, and I put up with it for a number of.
And you're living in a bubble with these people, so that
every
becomes
day.
your world.
That person. It's literally like it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Unpaid, obviously, but you're there full-time, and I was training twice a day with this. With this guy who was just, it was pretty bad looking. And I was only 19, I think. So I put up with it for a really long time. And then I was like, it just got really bad. And it got to the point where I don't want to go to training. And this was at the very beginning when I'm learning how to stay in the boat.
Yeah.
And
so you've already got that to cope with, but overlaying that, you've got somebody who's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And so naturally not supportive. And then you're thinking, well, who do I turn to in this situation when the person...
Bad. Actually, I remember some things now that we talk about it. Like, you just put it at the back of your mind, but I remember some things. So, like, I remember he would make trainings also, like, so me and another girl were drafted in, and he would make trainings, like a third training, and then not tell me about it because I was like developing faster than my teammate was. So instead of just, including me in on that, he was trying to put the other person up more.
Favoritism.
Yeah, stuff like that. It was pretty bad. But more so it was overhearing what he was saying to other people and hearing, like, when I did speak up about it, there were a number of people who were like, yes, this is, like, he's been like that, he's been like this. A number of people, like, even my teammate who was my main competitor said over again, like, I'm so glad he's gone, like, that sort of thing.
So the AIS stepped in and took action.
They did. I'm so grateful for the AIS. They did. They took action, and he left, and he never returned to the sport. He actually moved away.
Oh, right.
But I'm really grateful for their support because we're seeing all this stuff come out in the media. Like, a great example is that swimmer who just boycotted the Olympic trials And I can tell you it's a very similar experience to what she had.
Right.
And now she's getting supported by a hopefully independent board that's reviewing what she's come out and spoken about. But I had a very similar experience. But when you speak out about it, you are fucked. And even just saying it now, it's almost a bit scary for me because I'm like, is any future coach or is any future sport going to hear this and think, oh, no. You know what I'm saying? That's what you have to live with. And that's probably my biggest regret. But that's one point, that's the point when I can say I felt from that moment that the specific organisation no longer supported me and they did whatever they could to not support me. That was what the feeling I had was. And the reason for that being that guy having close affiliations with those people. So that is something.
So he left, but the people he was close to,
president of the committee, president of the
all remained in place, and it's always difficult to know to the extent that those people knew, but you would imagine that they would know the character of the man, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, it says a lot about their character too. But I mean, if any combat athletes were listening to this and had a similar experience, I would actually say really consider about whether you speak up or not. And you know, I would love to be in a world where I would say always speak up against what's wrong. But I can say that probably did cost me international opportunities. 100%. There's no doubt.
And where were you training? Were you training?
This is in West Lakes.
So you're training locally. So can you imagine how horrible that would have been if you were in Canberra, for instance, and away from that?
Yeah.
And I just, I can only imagine how difficult that would be for those people.
Evil prevails when good men fail to act.
That's true. That's true. I mean, at least I stopped it happening to other people. That was a pretty big thing for me. At least then, I mean, it did become more enjoyable after that. After that, I was able to enjoy the sport, but it's just like, if I were to look back and think, what would I change about my career? Maybe finding what I could have done different.
But was it also about that time that you started to think about boxing a little bit more?
Probably.
Yeah.
Punching the guy in the face.
I was going to say some motivation, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a very interesting thing. I think politics in sport, it's massive. And I guess I've always been someone to try and stand up for what's right. That's integrity is massive for me. At least looking back, I can say I did that. But it does cost you your future, you know. And as I said, there's so many things I'd love to really be detailed about and really speak up about, but I don't feel like I can because it will cost me my future sports career. That's how it feels. That's really how it feels. Have you guys had anything similar like that?
I can picture the environment that would be in where, you know, for us, it's always like we try to keep everything fun, and fun is first because, you know, you want to come along and have a good time, and you want anybody who's experiencing the sport or whatever sport it is, that the first thing is, hey, this is a fun thing to do. Come down and we'll welcome you in and you have a good time. That's got to be fundamental throughout every level, I would say, even to the absolute top level, because when you add in those pressures and money and commitments and sponsors and this and people you can't let down, I think people forget why they're doing it.
Yeah,
and it's like,
absolutely.
if you're not doing it for number one reason, you enjoy doing it because, hey, this is fun. I love going out there and doing this. This is great. If you're not doing it for that reason, and with UFC, every single time when they're doing a pre-match interview with somebody, if they say, I'm fighting for my family, I'm fighting for somebody else, they'll lose.
Yeah,
they'll lose because they're not fighting for themselves. You have to fight for yourself first. You have to have that fun attitude first. If you're doing it for somebody else, you're not going to be 100% committed to it. You can see that across a lot of things, and especially with those high level. He seems to be with like really, you know, swimming or with a lot of the Olympic sports where they really start pressuring athletes, and especially at a
really
young
age.
And gymnastics is horrible.
Like aggressively, it's like that does not look like a fun. Like, you know, the coach screaming, it's like that isn't a fun thing.
Yeah,
how is that fun?
I think in a lot of cases, these people very much live in a bubble, and it's a bubble of the.
It's a fucking bubble. I can tell you that. I lived in a fucking bubble. I did, absolutely.
And you're insulated from the rest of the world, and you become captive to these personalities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that it amplifies the negativity of it.
Hmm.
I really, honestly, like, I could say so much that I would love to say, but I can't. But yeah, it can get so negative, and it can get so hard.
And I would imagine when the AIS came about, going through your testing and the like, they would have also tested for personality types to see where you fit within the big five, and they would have known that you're agreeable, and they would have known these things. And so when you're an agreeable personality, it means even more what those people that are in positions of authority around you have to say about you, and the impact of those words cuts really, really deep. And then you've got that compounded by age and all of everything else that's going on in life when you're 18, 19, 20, and then those real development years where you're trying to find yourself, but then you've got some crazy Eastern European guy yelling at you.
I gotta say, I think both my European coaches were the best.
They were okay?
Yeah, they were funny. At least their accents just made everything amazing. Both
They
of
could have been
both
mean.
of their accents.
Your hips are big, like. But you kind of go, that's all right.
Yeah. Especially my first coach, his accent was incredible. Shout out to Christoph. But just getting because he's Polish too. I'm half Polish, and he'd be like, Isabella. Or to my teammate Josie, also everyone loved his accent. Just an amazing accent.
Oh, that's
very
great.
funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, because you said on the first podcast that you had envisioned what was going to happen at the Olympic trials, and you said the thing that you had envisioned did happen, and then you didn't go into detail as to what it was. So what happened at the Olympic trials?
This is getting into an expose
So
there.
perhaps we can set this up a little bit
Sure.
more. So you're at the Olympic trials. This has just happened, really, isn't it?
Guys, this is like the most traumatic event of my life. You really want to talk about this?
Deep dive.
Let's go. All right. No comment. All right. Let's fucking talk about the Olympic trials.
Music's back.
Rory's letting me escape
clouds.
with this
Can we do-
suspenseful
do
music.
the
All
line?
right, we're going to go into this. All right, I'm going to fucking... Oh, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to fucking expose everything.
Excellent.
Let's go.
That'll be an exclusive, Rory.
This is an exclusive. Here we go. From my perspective. All right.
And so so for everybody who's listening who might know your story, so you were an aspiring Olympian.
Still fucking inspiring. Aspiring.
Still aspiring. So,
I'm still trying,
so
Dave.
Beijing's coming. So, but maybe aspiring to represent your country in a different sport next time. So. But this time around, so this is only like 6 or so months ago. And how's the water from our sponsor?
With the wildflowers.
This is the first time you've actually tasted the water. And you just realise, what the hell is it? No, the balance cleanse. We can
calm blue ocean.
Dribbly.
I love my Balance Cleanse water. Shout out to Balance Cleanse. You know what? You guys are so much better than Aqua Love water. You know what? I don't Aqua Love water.
Not anymore. No, it's under the table. That's right. They had their chance last week.
They
had
did,
their chance.
but Balance has a chance to
Step up to the plate.
step up to the plate.
I like it. Balance. Balance cleanse. It's my favourite.
Personal choice.
Yeah. So when it comes to balanced water, when were your trials? When were the trials? So when did all of this kind of culminate?
I remember it like it was yesterday. It all happened. Well, okay, so there were 2 trials to make the Australian Olympic canoe kayak team.
Yeah.
The first one was the Oceania Championships, the qualifiers. So that's where Australia had to qualify.
The whole team. Apparently that was made in 1927.
So we get some WD-40 on this.
Some balanced water.
We can use some balanced water.
It does everything.
Sorry.
Yeah, so first lot of trials for the whole team.
Yep.
And Australia qualifiers for the and how did you feature in the trials there? You were happy with your performance? Things went to plan?
So I had relocated to Melbourne.
Yep.
I was training with my teammate Reka. She's originally born in Hungary.
Oh yeah.
And she's an amazing kayaker. I think she became 3rd in worldwide for marathon kayak, which is obviously a marathon.
Yeah.
Not a sprint, but a very awesome She's a really cool person. Yeah, she's great. Great teammate. So I can't even remember what happened, but like, we're like, are we going to try for the Olympics? I don't even remember when this happened. But so I don't even know. I can't even remember my life. But I'd moved back from Queensland, I think. And then I was thinking about, obviously, the trials. I'd had a bit of so I went to medical school in 2018.
Right.
When I left to go to, this is a bit of a preface, when I left to go there, the university was really big on my sport. They were so excited. They're like, oh, we have so many Olympians here. Like, we want to help you. They do have a lot of swimming Olympians there, and they kept on going on about it. And it was a completely different story when I got there. Honestly, one of my biggest regrets in general is doing medicine. I'd always had an idea that I'd be doing it when I'm 30. And I don't know why. I was like, when I'm over 30, I'm going to go do it then, because I didn't expect to get in. So I kept trying every year to get into med.
So you're a really high achiever academically at school to get yourself into that opportunity and at a sports level.
Did all right. Yeah. I
okay.
did work very hard. I don't know how the hell I got my grades. I really don't. Looking back, and I'm like, what the hell?
So
I couldn't do that now.
So you're literally preparing for medical school at the same time as preparing for the Australian team in kayaking?
Yeah, I was doing that. Yeah. So I was I actually got my first interview in like around the time of, we have 3 main competitions in canoeing. They're called Grand Prix, and that's our national competition before nationals. I remember like second Grand Prix, I got a message saying, you've progressed to the next round. And I was like, are you joking? I tried for 3 years or something. So when I got that, I was like, are you serious? Yeah. I was so blinded by the fact that I got an offer into med that I didn't seriously consider it. And my gut feeling was, don't go. I was really happy where I was. And, everything was really perfect where I was. And I was really happy canoeing, and it was really good at that point in time. This is 2018. And then went for it, got the interview. And then I think it was after nationals, I found out that I got offered a spot, which was definitely one of the happiest days of my life. But I was so blinded. I think it was just aiming for something that to me was so impossible that I wouldn't achieve until I was like over 30. That was literally my thought, was I'd never get an offer into med. I just thought it was so impossible, which is stupid. I can now tell anyone listening to this, if you want to do it, it's not anyone can do it. Trust me. Anyone, it's achievable. Anything is. Anyway,
I felt like we needed Rocky music just in the background. Whenever Izzy says anything inspirational, starts on a tangent.
I like that. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, my whole point with this is, I think being blinded by that opportunity and stuff, I didn't really assess what does this mean for canoeing. Plus, they told me over and over, you're going to be like supported. Like, we're so excited, blah, blah, blah. I got there and they literally made me, they're just like, it was impossible to do both my study and the sport. It got to a point where, to be fair, this was a bobsled competition. Okay, sorry, this is going to get... So I went away to compete for World University Championships in canoeing, and the university wouldn't change the dates of an exam. So my final year medical exam, they wouldn't change. They wouldn't say you can sit it later because of your sport. Right. Whereas they'd always said, we will balance your studies around. And there's lots of great opportunities. Like in America, there was a story, I remember while I was in med school, there was reading a story about an NFL athlete who took 6 or 7 years to finish his medical degree. And I remember thinking, that's amazing. He was so supported. Like, I thought that's what's going to happen. So it got to a point where I had to make a choice between sport and med. And I chose sport because my logic was sport is time limited. I can always go back as originally planned, but I do regret that year. And that did set me behind. And in terms of like everything, I don't know, it just felt like, am I going to make it? Am I not? Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of pressure.
So you went all in on the Olympic dream at that point?
I went all in. Yeah, I went all in.
Yeah.
Into 2018, I went all in. I went fully all in. I mean, I went overseas. Like, I went to train in Canada.
Yeah.
Shout out to every Canadian. Amazing group of people. Obviously, they're very polite. But I really feel at home in Canada. Yeah, I've got a great support network there in Ottawa. I'd say just as awesome as Adelaide. It's like the Canadian version of Adelaide to me. I know my way around. Like, I can navigate everywhere there. A great group of people, as I've said. Awesome coach there. Shout out to Mihail. Mihail.
So it's in the accents, I think. Good coaches, great accents.
They do.
Olympic gold ensues.
No one has a normal name in coaching.
True. Absolutely not. Yeah.
So you you're already edging into a sport that you weren't 100% passionate about, but we're told by everybody else you're going to be great at it. And as it turns out, you were great at it, certainly at an elite level. And you're then in conflict around, okay, I'm doing this medical degree that I don't really feel like I should be doing right now. And
I
then it's like,
so regret doing that. It's
I've
a
got
big mistake. I don't know who the. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I've got to drop one of these. I've got to drop one of the big potatoes here, and I've got to go all in. And it seems to me at this stage you would have been going all in on something that you might have regretted anyway at this juncture, because you got huge energy, massive intellect, and now it's just a matter of, I've got to do one of these two things. I'm ready to go on one of them, so I'm going in on kayaking.
Yeah, it was a gamble. It was a gamble.
You rolled
and it
the
was
dice.
a decision. I rolled the dice. My biggest logic, my biggest reason to not continue medicine was sport is time limited.
Yeah.
I caught up with some of my med friends. I remember saying to them, listen, guys, in like 4 years, you're going to be doctors and I'm going to be a very poor athlete. Can you please sponsor me in 4 years? I had 1 year, so you better remember this. But that was a gamble. I mean, it's two polar opposite things in one way, because sport is almost like it takes up all my time and it takes up, most of my funds and stuff. And luckily I work as a coach. It balances out. But like doing med would have been the safe option in one way. Like I would have been guaranteed a job. That's one thing where you finish it and you're guaranteed a job. Anyway, my whole point. Yeah.
Are you still too close to that to say whether or not you made the right decision at that point, or do you feel like?
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
Well, I feel like my decision was wrong in leaving and going to study medicine. That was the wrong decision.
From the get-go.
And also, once I did that, that was also saying to the institute, okay, she's out. That was pretty much what happened. That is pretty much what happened. That's probably where I really did lose my spot for the Olympics, was probably there.
Wow.
Yeah, probably. Because my only option from that point really was to make it in the individual. But by that point, I'd taken 1 year off. So to clarify, I could have qualified individually or in the C2. So there are two boats going. The C2, 2 people, the C1, 1 person.
Yeah.
So that was the gamble. So then come 2019, I'm just like, okay, this is my one opportunity. I've got to go all in. And it was mostly alone. Then I went overseas to train. Then I came back. So 2020, the competitions we had to make were Oceania Championships, GP, Grand Prix 2, and Nationals. So it's the end of 2019, I think, roughly. I can't even remember, but I don't even remember how this conversation happened. But there was this one athlete, one canoeist, Reka from Hungary, who's Victorian-based. And it was always me. Pardon?
Your teammate?
My teammate, great teammate. Lovely. Love you, Reka. And we were always very close to each other in the C1 race, like would either one of us very close. So that was usually for second or third position nationally. And then somehow, I can't remember who approached who really. I don't even remember how that happened, but we were like, all right, we're going to try and go to the Olympics. We'll try and make it in the C2. So I relocated.
So you teamed up at that point?
We teamed up, yeah. So I drove my boat over to Melbourne, ended up driving my boat all different between cities. Pretty comfortable with it, pretty fun drive. Worrying the whole time about if the boat's just going to go. Yeah. So then, so that was amazing to go to live in Melbourne. I lived in Richmond. I'm friends with a guy who owns a place right opposite Punt Oval.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So I could see the Tigers training. So that's why I support the Tigers, because they train very hard.
Yeah.
They do train bloody hard. I mean that. Whereas when I was training at West Lakes, I'd see the Crows. And the lights would always go off pretty early. The lights would go off and we'd still be training out on the water at West Lakes.
That's because they're at the bar having Chardonnay.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Working the bicep.
Yeah. Exactly. For arm wrestling.
That's right.
Whereas at Richmond, I'd go to sleep and they'd still be training. So it says a lot about the Tigers. That's why they win.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm training with Breaker. She is working full time as a teacher, so she really could not like give the full time. Luckily, as a casual worker, part time worker, I was able to give more time to my sport. But we weren't able to do. Don't remember how many. We barely got like one training in a week, whereas our main competitors were training and fully funded. To train, good for them. To train twice a day. So that's massive, So that was obviously we didn't really have hope. But at the same time, we've always got hope, and I always have hope. That's probably my biggest characteristic is to have hope.
Yeah.
And so we kept going, we trained, and we came second at Oceania Championships.
Wow.
So Australia qualified. Woo! Yeah. Qualified for the Olympics. Yeah. So that's when that means Australia has a spot, and that means the next race in conjunction with that first race was then what they used for rankings for
to see whether or not you got a spot on the team.
Yeah. So that was the C2. So the C1 race, I can't remember what the placings were for the first. For the second race, this is a controversy.
Oh,
Here we
Here
go.
we go.
so
This
it all
is-
came down
leading
to
up
this moment.
to this moment. Where's the music?
So
This
you've given up medical school. You've gone all in.
I've gone all fucking in.
You moved.
Oh, wait, I've got 2 pieces of controversy. You're going to love the first one. You're going to love this. So my boat is about 10 years old at this point in time. I've got a very old one that was used in the Sydney Olympics. It was actually in the Sydney Olympics.
Wow.
So I order, this deserves suspense.
There we go.
Wait till you hear
There we
this. So I invest in a brand new canoe.
Oh.
And it's nice, and it's got odes to my ancestors on it.
Wow.
It's very sentimental. Actually, the artwork I had on it, I had it designed also in partnership with a Indigenous artist. So I paid homage to the water that I paddle on every day for the traditional landowners wherever I am. So it's a beautiful boat. I order it. Somebody, wait till you hear this. This is great. So the shipment gets delayed.
Ooh.
And there's a number of other people who've got new kayaks coming from different state sports institutions. But someone called up Australian Customs and got the shipment delayed.
Ooh.
Now, let me say, this is obviously
Are there
not for
suspects?
me.
Because Matt's pretty good at finding people.
Yeah, you can find the person. But I find
VPN.
this very interesting. No, I found this very interesting because I don't think this is just for me. Obviously not. I think there is a larger force looming where one of the sports institutions didn't want someone else to be faster. It would be about the Olympic kayakers, and then they were ringing them up to try and delay that.
Wow.
And that's what the owner of the shipment company said, or of the brand of boat that was imported.
Right.
That's what he said.
Wow.
Incredible.
So your boat.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So I have a brand new boat, which is much skinnier, much faster. Obviously, the handle's different.
Yeah.
And that arrived, I think I had 2 days before the actual Olympic trials in my new boat.
Just conveniently, so they could say, well, you still had your boat, but you had no practice in the boat, essentially.
I had very little time in that boat. And because I haven't been on the water since Olympic trials, I think I've been in that boat maybe, 10 times. I mean, I was on the water 3 times a day, and for the races and all that, probably maybe 20 times or something, a bit more than that.
Yeah.
But that's how many times I've been in that brand new boat. Yeah.
Right. So you've got the
So
boat.
a little bit of sabotage there.
Sabotage. There was sabotage. That's what I
Wow.
mean. That wouldn't happen. You can't really do that.
The
with
intrigue around canoeing. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I know. And this is the funny thing. I caught up with one of my closest
So
friends.
on top of overcoming some kind of sexual predator / negative influence to...
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
Okay, we'll just run with that.
We'll just laugh with it.
Yeah. That's it.
Laugh when it's painful. Gets me through everything. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
So you've come up against the inertia of the institutions, and then all of a sudden you get to that final moment where you've made that investment in your sport.
Huge investment.
A huge investment. You're working part-time. You've given up on your studies as a medical student, and the last hurdle literally is presented to you by your boat turning up 2 days before. The boat that could have given you the edge, that could have got you across the line.
And I just remember actually being in contact with the boat, the person who's importing the boats. And it was always so it was meant to come for the Oceania Championships, which were a month or more before. And it was just another week, just another week, just another week. They've been delayed. And I was like, is it coming this week? And the Olympic trials are just coming closer and closer. I'm like, is it coming? Is it coming? Is it coming? And in after what you've just said, I caught up for coffee with one of my closest friends, the one of the few people that you tell most things to. And I said, did I ever tell you what went on with canoeing? And she's like, no, I thought you were so happy. I was like, I didn't tell anyone this. So I've got most of this I've never said this to anyone. I know now I'm saying it on a live podcast, but I never shared any of that with anyone. I don't know why I didn't. I was just, and so what that meant was when I perhaps could have been having a lot of support from my friends and from my family, I just didn't, because they had no idea. I didn't realize I'm that good at being it's all cool, I'm fine.
But is it also in some part, you see this a lot with professional athletes, that they'll kind of bottle all of that up and somehow use that in the lead up to a big championship or a big competition.
It's what
or
kept
a
me
big
going.
fight.
No, that's really
and that becomes the fuel.
Yeah, it was massive fuel. That's I mean, I was paddling on the Yarra. I was training every day individually and where possible with my teammate either in the C1 or the C2 leading up to these trials. So I was the only I've been one of the few canoeists ever to go out on the Yarra near all the rowing boats, because that's just something canoeists don't do. There's so few canoeists who can balance the boat. There really are. Like, it's different to kayaking. It's so incredibly difficult to balance. It takes so many months to learn how to stay in the boat that deters most people. There's a very few, like, it's a skill that not many people have because it's so hard to just balance in the boat. It's that skinny, it's that difficult. So, you know, one of my favourite memories was during that period and just training one day on the Yarra, and I've got a video of this, but I'd try and take a video, and it's just the most beautiful sunset, and these flock of birds just came past at the right time with the music I had on, and it was just like, this is so beautiful. I think I was playing Gold by Chet Faker, and I was just like, this is, you know, it's just phenomenal, really stunning. But yeah, that was actually a really nice time.
And what was the second controversy?
This is a pretty big controversy. This is a very big controversy. Yeah, I can talk all day about canoe. I feel like I'm talk too much.
Well, I mean, the podcast is the daily combat, in some part because we live a combat every day. Every day is a battle, you know. And
this was the biggest battle of my sports.
And it sounds like this was, this was the culmination of a whole lot of struggles, you know. It was. And on top of that, all you're trying to do is represent your country. You know, so step us through the second controversy.
A therapy session.
Yeah, a little bit.
Should be a sports psychologist.
We're just trying to help. We're
So
trying
tell
to
us more about the
and balance you at the same time.
I'm feeling quits. All right, okay, so this is like the biggest thing, and this is why I haven't been on the wedding. Oh god, there's too much of me. All right, I'm gonna say it. I mean, it's happened. It's all out there on the internet. So, and this is why I actually made a protest on the podium at the Olympic trials. This is why I didn't just hold my medal and smile. I had my hand up because this isn't right. And I actually, no, fuck it. I'm just going to say it as it is. So we had our first race, qualified, was in the finals. This is the Olympic trials. You have to make a certain time, and you have to win. You have to be the number one in Australia. That means you'd probably still get a spot, but they also add in clauses. Yeah. So the selection policy says something like top 3 in Australia. First for singles has to be number 1 in Australia, has to reach the time, or at any stage we may choose to either go with this policy or without it.
So it's very...
That's what the selection policy is.
So it's meant to be very clear, and as an athlete you want something to shoot for, but it seems that it's quite arbitrary and can be changed at any moment.
Basically how it reads is we can at any time choose anyone that we want.
Wow.
Right.
Regardless of the performance of the other people.
Okay. Ooh. And so how did you guys perform on that day? So
the C2, we were a fair bit behind. Mm-hmm. We did come second, but really there's no, absolutely, I mean, I'm happy to say.
And it was outside of the time or it wasn't?
I think we were well outside the time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Actually, interestingly enough, the first crew were also outside the time, much closer, but they did not make the time either. It was a very quick time, obviously. They've been training, twice a day for like 2 years or something, going and competing internationally, having all that experience and being funded and fully supported by the organisation, which we didn't have. But... you know, they didn't make it. I think they were just a bit outside of it, but they had a great race. It was good to watch, even though I was competing. I saw it afterwards. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. We, on the opposite hand, you know, had very few trainings together. We did the best we could. I thought we had a pretty good race. I mean, we executed our race plan. I think we got a PB, so there's no complaining. And we came second. So that's pretty good for rankings and all that. We did pretty well. And third place was pretty far behind it. Like, you know, not even in the question. It was going to be between us and them. And then in the single race, first place was disqualified.
Wow.
Was disqualified. And what were the reasons for the disqualification?
In canoeing, you must stay in the middle of your lane.
Right.
So if you are outside the middle of the lane, you are influencing the lanes beside you. The wake, exactly. Right. My teammate, and you can actually see this on footage, was definitely influenced by wake coming off first place's boat. So number one, there's that evidence there. Number 2.
Which would slow you down, lead to turbulence, and generally speaking, make it harder for you to qualify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And slow down, yeah. And then first place had a boat right behind them. So they had a boat whose job it was to look at them. And because, she was going to be the one who would win, they chose out of all the lanes, that safety boat chose to go behind and watch her.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
In an effort to make the time, she didn't stay in the middle of her lane because she had to make that time, and that pressure was so big. So she made the time, I think. I'm pretty sure she did. Pretty great time. But she didn't do it. If that was the Olympic race, she would have been disqualified.
Right.
So it made it. Was she trying to disadvantage the competitors, or was she in her efforts to go faster?
She absolutely wouldn't have done that. I don't think she would have done that intentionally. It was especially not because it would risk her qualification spot. Absolutely not. It wouldn't have been that.
Yeah.
But it would have been, I'm going to go as quick as I fucking can because I want to make the Olympic team and I need to make this time.
Yeah.
And it was the fastest time. It would have been 3 seconds faster than anyone in Australia had done.
Wow.
Incredible.
Wow. And it was incredible. It was, the times they set were very hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, technically no one made them because, she was disqualified in doing that. I mean, if I had wanted to go as fast as I could and if I'd been thinking, I'm going to go outside my lane and go as quick as I can, maybe I would have made the time. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I would have won the race if I'd just been like, I'm just going to go batshit crazy. Doesn't matter if I go outside the lane because I can appeal my disqualification, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what this meant was at that point in time, I was second in both the C1 and the C2, and I could have qualified. They can pick up to 3 people. So no matter what, even when she later had her disqualification appealed, I'm pretty sure I'm still currently ranked number 3, even though that was my last race. I'm currently the 3rd best canoeist in Australia. I'm gonna fucking plug for all the fucking hard work I put in. I am fucking proud of that. Sorry, but But
you're also the number 1 female arm wrestler right now.
That's right.
So that's something.
The trophy says that.
Well, yes,
oh, right.
the
In
trophy.
South Australia. Yeah, I was like, not in Australia. I don't know.
The trophy doesn't lie.
Yeah.
No, my favourite thing about arm wrestling is that I'm ranked 37 in the guys, and even though there's only 38.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know. I'm proud of that.
Good.
So that happened. But I think the way the organisation dealt with it could have been better. We were alerted about 10 p.m. that night before that C2 race. Do you want to appeal her appeal? Like, she's appealing, she's saying this, these are her reasons. Do you want to appeal? I just remember how stressed everyone was. And I'm really good. I'm grateful to have the skill to just put things away and focus on what I have to get done. So I did not let any distractions stress me. I personally did not feel stressed, but my teammate did. There were definitely a number of people on our general team who were highly stressed, like our team manager, definitely, who were affected by the way they were handling things. So we were pretty much alerted, there's an appeal going on, blah, blah. But it was very late at night before our next race. I really just put it to the back of my mind. I thought, I almost expected there's going to be something like this happening. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. I'm good at that. I'm good like that.
So late at night, the night before qualifying, you're getting a phone call from officials saying, hey, there's this legal action being taken. Now you have to make a decision about what you would do next.
Yep.
Okay. And this is before your biggest day in the sport.
Yep.
Yep.
And so she...
And your boat only turned up 2 days before.
Initially she was disqualified. She appealed and it got overturned.
Yes.
And nobody else, for the other competitors, were able to reappeal, or they didn't choose to reappeal?
They gave us that option very late at night, the night before our C2 race, which is our team race.
Right.
That morning, I'm not quite sure. Someone on the team was crying. It wasn't me. I'm not sure if it was my teammate or my team manager. I don't mean to call them out like here, and it's not bad to let your emotions show, but what I mean to do is demonstrate the extent to which that person was feeling the stress.
Yeah, the duress would be huge. Yeah,
it wasn't, there's so nothing bad about that, but that's how much pressure was put on us. And as I said, I guess I'm just I learned very, very well how not to let things affect me like that and not just focus on things, don't be emotional about it, and just focus on executing the job. Yeah.
Yeah, and this girl, was she she was the presumptive number 1 anyway?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was quite clear. So at the same time, you're like, I don't want to ruin this girl's dreams by
Yes,
appealing
that
because
was the hard
she
thing.
probably
So
would
I
have
don't-
won anyway.
We didn't even that was the thing. So I don't think we even put in. I don't think we did put in something because we didn't want to. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like she was the only person who trained just as hard as me.
Yeah.
I remember she was the only one when I was training in Adelaide. When I came back, she was the only person who would hit the water 3 times a day like me. I would be there in the morning and she would have just signed out. You know, I'd be there in the middle of the day. She would have just signed in. You know, her name was always there. And I was like, at least she's training really hard and she wants this as much as I do because I hadn't had that experience with anyone else.
So she was disqualified initially, it got overturned.
Yes.
If anyone else in the field had appealed it and let's say the disqualification stood, the Olympic Committee could have still chosen her anyway from that clause that they'd put in. Is that
No? Oh, not the Olympic Committee, but the canoeing organisation could have, and I am sure they would have. So
Right.
when I say, and I guess I'm all right to say it, but when I say what I saw happening for the Olympic trials. It was 2017. I knew the 2 people who'd be going to the Olympics. I wrote down their names. I put it in a Word document somewhere. I've been trying to find it. I think I updated my computer and it's not there. But I knew who was going.
Yeah.
I knew who was going. I wrote it down. I wrote down that these are the 2 people who'll be going. And maybe that fucked me up. Maybe just writing that down, I should have written my name down there instead. But I knew, and maybe that's why it didn't really hit me like it. What hit me the hardest, I think, was thinking about the amount of time I invested because time has always been so important to me. So thinking about the time I invested in the sport, was that all a waste because it's such a specific skill? It was never I didn't make it to the Olympics. The only time not making it to the Olympics has actually hit me was when I went to support my friend at the Paralympic swimming trials because there's so much Tokyo merchandise everywhere and everything's fucking green and gold. So that was quite recently. That was like 2 weeks ago. But aside from that, I've had no kind of down from not making it because I don't think it's over yet. Yeah.
Okay. And what makes you feel it's not over yet?
Because I've still got plenty of time to make the Olympics and it's going to be a lot better when I do. Yeah.
Well,
In
canoeing
You know what?
or-
Because when I don't know about that. Especially after what I've just said. I don't
Right.
think Australia can win.
It's
Welcome
You can tell when you're not.
We've been waiting for you.
I think they'll probably try and kill me.
We have new
disappears.
canoe for you.
It ticks.
No, it's a very interesting thing. It is a very interesting thing. So I think it's been very interesting to reflect on this all. But I think I'll quickly draw it back to when I did finally get that offer. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I never in a million years thought I could. I actually was literally applying to med every year because I thought I would never do it. That's why. I thought this is so hard. I must do it. But when I got that offer, I reckon I would have been 10 times happier getting it then. And the satisfaction of this has taken me so long then and what I learned in the process, like the sports management degree I was doing was incredible and it's helped me in sport. Then if I'd gotten in straight out of school. So what I mean to say is if I make the Olympics in 2028 LA, if that's the first Olympics I make, yeah, that's going to feel awesome. That means I would have tried for like nearly 2 decades, I think. Not nearly 2 decades, but yeah, exactly. It would be
Over 2 decades.
No, sorry, 1 decade. If I make it to 2018, it'd be just it'd be about 13 years of trying.
Yeah.
And I think that would be awesome.
What would you be looking at? Are you
What
going to
sport?
reveal that, or is that something that
Well,
you
I
haven't?
love boxing. And that's the thing is like, is your goal, I had a conversation with someone, is your goal to make the Olympics or is your goal to be the best in your sport? Because it's 2 different things.
Prize
To
fighting.
make the Olympics, it's a lot easier. Canoeing is so goddamn specific. It really is. Like so many girls were randomly joining at the end, which is fantastic. I saw the sport grow from like 5 women who were able to stay in the boat to now there's like 20 nationwide. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
It's so hard to learn how to balance the boat that not many people, like it's very specific. If I want to make the Olympics, aside from the fact that I feel like the organisation absolutely would prefer it that I didn't, that's literally the main thing.
Right.
I would definitely try for canoe because it's easy. Like if you become skilled at it and if you work as hard as that girl who, as I said, it was the first time someone had that same work ethic and that made me really happy. In fact, I'm genuinely happy that she did make it and she deserves it. She's had a hard life. She worked hard and she made it. Good for her. That to me is like the way to go is, if you want to make the Olympics, does it really matter what you do? But that's what I learned.
Why is it making the Olympics so important to you?
Oh, I just want to go to the Olympics.
Why?
Because it's just like the pinnacle of sport. I think that's the main thing. What it represents, the values, and I mean, even now, like I think it's not, to me, it's not really about making it. It's about the process of. It really is actually. It's not that important to me. The truth is, what's important to me is trying to go that high. That's the truth of it. It's not really like, it's never been about putting on a blazer. It's never been about calling myself an Olympian, ever. It's never been about that. It's been about training full time, dedicating my life to something, and aiming for something that seems impossible. And I think that's what I do most of the time.
Does it have to be the Olympics? What if in boxing another career path opened up and they said this is the way to a world championship? Or
I'd love a big belt. I can see myself with I can see myself with it. I can see that. And I never could with canoeing. I never could see it. It's different when you can see something.
Absolutely. But would that be a replacement in terms of the Olympic dream?
Maybe.
If something else, another avenue opened up. But it's good that you've got those options there, and you know that if you commit, you have the work ethic to be able to get the skills that you need to either be in the Olympics or a world champion or whatever thing that you want to do. It's like the skills I gathered from my time in canoeing, I can apply that discipline and hard work to achieve whatever it is that I want to get. So regardless as to if it's boxing or if, canoeing or whatever it is that you want to put your time and effort into, if you take those lessons and that time that you did spend, building yourself up to Olympic level and apply that in another sport or in a business or anything, you can really achieve something. So I don't think it's wasted time. I think any time where you learn those skills, because it's not just about the skill of canoeing, it's the discipline, because somebody might learn how to canoe and they might do it for fun. I don't know, but
it doesn't sound like anybody does.
But if you've spent that time and you've gotten through the hard yards of, like you said, 3 times a day training, nobody else does that. Like that shows that you really want this thing and you are willing to sacrifice and put time and effort into getting it. Whatever it is you want to get, you do exactly those same things and you'll get it. It's an important skill to learn, and you've learnt it. So I think it's
true.
great.
And all the mums want to know, can you still go back to medical school if you want to? Like, has she left the door open on the medical school thing? Like, just
the
in
door
case.
is open.
Yeah.
The door is open, but there's some other things which I've realised I really want to do in my life. Yeah, for sure.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
And you know what? Something you said before about the Olympics, which I have never really talked about, but during the AIS, we did do a psychological test. Well, we did a few. We did lots of assessments. We did lots of psych testing and all that. But after one of them, I can't quite remember the name of it, but actually any combat athletes should look this up, because you can actually do this. Dan Green is still collecting research for all athletes. So if you can find the name of this, maybe I can find it and link it somehow. Do it, because it means the guy gets more data, and he's a great person, so do it. But I scored the same as our gold medalist Olympians. It was the same psychological skills or something
Same
like that.
makeup.
It creates like a hexagon of your qualities or something. It's not even an octagon. Oh my god!
Hang on.
Oh my god!
All the way around.
Here we go. And yeah, the researcher came up to me. He's like, you got the same as our gold medalist Olympians, and that's why that's one of the
And
reasons.
was that a surprise to you?
Massive surprise.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah?
absolutely. He was talking about, he's like, someone here scored the same as gold medalist Olympians.
Yeah.
And I would not, I was like, that was when I was 18. I think I was 18 when I was going for it, and then 19 when I first started the sport. So I was 18 or 19, and I was not expecting me out of there was some really awesome athletes in that room. I was not like, I was not thinking that it was going to be me. I didn't even think that thought never even crossed my mind. Just rejected what he said. I was like, oh yeah, someone in here is amazing. It's not me. I didn't once think, not saying I'm amazing, but I mean, like, that's a big thing I do carry with me. And that is one of the reasons why I feel like I have to go to the Olympics, is because I know I have the potential. And that's the hardest thing for me and that's what I've said before in previous podcasts, is I know I have what it takes mentally. And it's so frustrating to know my potential and not be reaching it because I'm not in the right sport or I'm not in the right environment. It's like, I want to do it and I want it to be all on me. That's why I'm doing an individual sport. I want to be fully accountable for what happens. I don't want a disqualification. I don't want politics to get in the way. I want a really clear thing I can work towards and achieve, because I do obviously have the potential. Yeah, that is one of the reasons, I guess, why the Olympics were there. But it's true, that same thing could be done for a world championship. Why does it have to be the Olympics? But it was just that thing is in the back of my mind. Yeah. And that's why I kept going also in canoe, because I thought, that's what this test, but who knows? It's just a test, like.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's a personality, isn't it? Where you've got that all or none. You see that with Ronda Rousey, whenever you would see her personality and that sort of thing, it was everything or nothing in so much of her life.
You have to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be.
And, the fact she won silver. I think she's silver in judo.
In judo.
In the Olympics.
Yeah, first US.
Yes,
medal.
Disappointed. She was disappointed.
She was disappointed?
I think she was. She was upset that she didn't win the gold. But you could see her when she went through her UFC streak. I mean, she had a few amateur fights, which she won first round armbar, and then I think the first 7 UFC fights, first round armbar. Had a few knockouts and that sort of thing. Rose to the top of the world champion, recognised. And then when she lost to Holly Holm by knockout, the devastation you could see, and I remember watching an interview with her, and I think it was on Ellen, and she said, she was really upset, and she said, if I'm not world champion, then who am I? And it sort of was like,
she so strongly identifies with that high performance.
Exactly. I think that's one of those mental parts of the game that isn't focused on that. Yes, it is so important to focus on your goal, but you need to have those other steps along the way for fulfillment. You achieve this, feel great about it.
Yes.
You are a world champion forever. Like, it doesn't, you're not, just because you don't have the belt right now and you lost, you're still a world champion for the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that you're not who you are anymore. And I see that a lot in the fitness industry, where I'm working at the moment, that people have this, they build, like, say, a big muscular body, and they get respect for that, or people comment on that, and that
becomes their identity.
That becomes who they are, and they're so ingrained in it that if they have, like they say, they lose a couple of kilos, it's, oh my God, I'm not the big guy anymore. And especially for people that are using performance enhancing stuff, that they have to go bigger and smaller because they're cycling on and off throughout the year.
I did not know that. How interesting.
Right. Yeah. So
you just see these guys coming in like full on jacked, and then the next day they're like, oh, hello.
I am not kidding you. It is I've seen this. 20 years I've been training. I've seen this repetitive cycle. Guy will come in. He'll train for a couple
like that.
He'll come in, train for a little while as a beginner, and then obviously something happens where he might take some vitamins, and
it's a chance meeting in the change room with somebody more muscular leads to a transaction.
And all of a sudden the attitude changes. He starts being aggressive, water retention, redness around the face, puffy, really strong, strength just keeps going up through the roof, and then
jaw widens.
And then disappears, doesn't come back. And obviously when they stop using those vitamins, there is that down cycle. But
there's a muscular dysmorphia, which is the clinical opposite to anorexia.
Exactly.
And it's suffered by bodybuilders and weight trainers and people that...
Bigorexia.
Yeah, one of my exes had that. Yeah.
It's a real thing,
And so they all...
He kept asking me, am I big?
Right. And you kept saying yes.
You look muscly, it's fine.
Things are good.
Yeah, but it is a mind
game. But you knew how to destroy him as well. It's like,
have you lost weight? Jeez, you're looking skinny. Have you eaten today?
Just when
Are you still training? I love that one. You still training?
Still training, eh?
Yes, motherfucker. So they'll get this big growth period, And with that comes a big attitude and ego. They're looking around, it's like, yeah, I'm awesome. Yeah, look at me. And then, maybe they'll get some compliments. Maybe, oh, geez, mate, you're doing good. Oh, yeah, look at me. And then when the off season happens and they lose all of that or 90% of it, they can't handle the going backwards part. The strength's going down and down and down. And they stop training, completely stop
Like
training.
a superhero losing their superpower.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah. And so you'll see this big growth and then maybe 1 or 2 weeks of where they're off and they're realizing, and then they will disappear, won't come back to the gym. And then you'll see them like 2 years later and they're smaller than when they started. And you're like, why did you do it? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You put your body and your health at risk.
But that's the difference between, sorry.
Well, I would like to take this moment to say my only performance-enhancing thing that I need is my Balance Cleanse Water. Balance Cleanse Water.
yeah.
The only enhancement I need.
10% stronger.
10% by the end of the interview. So
right.
and it's only like 100 mils down. So don't overdose. Whatever you do, don't take too much at once.
You don't want to drink too much of this.
Absolutely.
This is what I was saying.
The wildflowers will get you.
When Greg was here, the MMA fighter with Diamondback FC, I was talking about, in the security industry, it's funny because everyone's
Insecurity.
Yeah.
But you have that where guys get this unnatural strength or unnatural size, and people will comment on them and say, oh, you're doing good. Oh, wow, look at this guy, he's massive. Oh, you've seen this guy, he's huge. And then that becomes their identity and then they don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, why are you caring about these people's opinions? You don't know who these people are. They are strangers. That this guy on a Friday night.
I think in some part because the muscle in that situation doesn't, apart from the lifts in the gym and the aesthetics, aren't really towards anything else. And so it really is an ego feeder to a large extent. There are naturally those people that are doing it as a discipline, and sometimes they channel that into competition, and that's where you see people kind of evolve out of that cycle, and it becomes their discipline outside of that. But when it's when you're performing at the elite level, that the ego isn't there in the same way because you understand the difference between winning and losing is so slim that it's just it's the weather on the day, it's the wake, it's the type of boat, whatever it might be. All of these can be factors that can make the difference in milliseconds. And so there's a humility that comes along with that in high performance activities.
Definitely.
Where there's a definite metric by which you're working to, whereas there aren't too many metrics in, hey, I've got 16 inch, is it 18 inch, what is it, where that it comes from psychologically a different perspective because it's not a practical element to the performance.
But I think that if you're relying on the opinion of strangers, that is a bad place to get your identity from.
Yeah, it really is.
If people are the random person on a Saturday night that said, "Oh man, you're massive," and then 2 weeks later goes, "Oh, you're not as big as you were last week," and that devastates you. It's like, why are you listening to that guy? You don't even know what it is.
Same as the coach.
Getting external validation and not feeling validated within themselves, which is quite sad because, the gym for me and for so many people, training in general, when not for my sport specifically, is definitely for well-being and physically and mentally. So it's a shame that people might lose that in pursuit of a certain look. And even as a coach, that's one thing like my mentor and my coach has always been really strong about is coaching for functional fitness and form will follow. So in terms of like the amount of girls who are like, oh my gosh, girls who are like.
That was the most girly we've seen you, by the way.
I'm just going to cut that bit and put it as a GIF.
Oh no, okay. So girls who, that's fine. Okay, so let's just quickly say that, obviously in the media at the moment, it's funny, different body forms come and go for men and for women, what's in fashion, whatever.
Thank God dad bods are in right now.
Yeah, I know. I've been thinking that ever since dad bods came in. I'm like, you fucking lucky guys. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Things just got better.
Whose idea was this?
No one actually thinks this, by the way.
But for women at the moment, with Kim Kardashian and that sort of thing, it became like stronger, and bigger looking asses, pretty much like glutes.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I've now seen in the gym, there's a machine called the Booty Builder.
Oh yeah, we got 2 of them. One for each booty.
Yeah.
So You know, like it's ridiculous. You know, this kind of good God, what has the fitness world come to? But there is, I mean, you know, sure, people want to create that form. That's great. That's good. But when you become fixated on that, I think what's getting lost is the positive things that we get out of fitness.
Yeah.
So as a coach, hearing that from someone is a bit disheartening. I'd rather hear someone say, "Can you help me bench this? Can you help me squat this? Or I want to be able to run fast. I want to be able to do this." And that's something my coach has always said. So I'll always, as a coach, I'll always be focused on functional fitness and function and what goals can I help you achieve, because by achieving those goals, you're going to feel better and your form will follow. So hearing these bounces like feel like that, it's a shame.
Absolutely. We used to have a guy that, I probably told this last time, he used to wear 5 shirts under his jacket.
You did not tell us that. 5 shirts? Did he get hot? Like, what do you do in summer?
Hey,
Wear,
when your ego's on the line, you know. But no, when it was not as big, he would wear 5 shirts underneath his
That's very sad.
uniform
Just
to
to fill
keep the
things out.
appearance of.
That's sad. Oh, so he was taking something.
And in the off season,
That's
it
very
was
sad.
T-shirts.
Yeah, that's right.
They sure always knew what to get him for his birthday.
Yeah, that's right.
So is that part of the reason why you transitioned to boxing, because the individualistic nature of it and the clear-cut nature of victory in boxing? Like, you know, if you've been knocked out, you came up against somebody that was better on the day, but if you were the one doing the knocking out, you deserved your spot in the podium. Was it that type of...
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
didn't have to seek too far for external validation when it was so immediately obvious in combat sport.
Exactly. Like, I want to feel fully responsible for my performance. I don't want to feel like any external influence is holding me back from my potential. And that is how I felt in canoeing. I felt like there were external forces, and no matter how hard I tried, no matter how hard I worked, it was never going to be in my favour. And, you know, maybe I was right. Maybe I wasn't, but it seems like I was. And yeah, that's why I knew straight away I wanted to do, also because I hadn't ever been paired with someone who was able to, willing to, and wanting to work at the same level as me, to sacrifice other things and other social things specifically to just put everything in and be all in like Rhonda, be all in like those athletes who are. I've never been in a team with someone who has been that same way inclined as me. If I was, maybe things would be different, but I just haven't had that opportunity yet. So for me, I knew I wanted to go to an individual sport.
And how old are you now?
25.
25. So in 2028, 32, 33?
Yeah, which is fine for Olympic sports, really, especially once you've committed that time. So one of my inspirations on the Australian women's boxing scene is Anya Stridesman. She won a gold medal at the 2018 Gold Coast Commonwealth Games in boxing. And I reached out to her. Now we've been friends. We actually met on Ninja Warrior. We both did Ninja Warrior this year. Was it this year I did that again? Yeah, I did it. I did that this year. Yeah, actually. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That looks like fun.
When was the first time you did Ninja Warrior?
Oh, yeah, you know.
You did good at Ninja Warrior. You should
93.
do
Oh,
it.
let's suck at it. I
don't know why I
unless
did
you're
it
holding
again.
yourself like this. So
No, but you've got the arm length. Like you both
I
do.
weigh like 100 kilos. I wouldn't be able to swing. It would be
It's
fun.
fun
I'd
though.
love
It's
to
fun
do
when
it.
you go flying. Like my catchphrase, if you're not going to make the wall, be about your fall.
Oh, nice.
Which is what
I
I
would love
was.
to just have like 2 hours on there just
Oh,
trying
it'd be so much
stuff.
fun. It'd be so much fun.
So do
Like,
you get do you get a practice run on it? Like,
No, you know.
Okay.
You watch it once. You watch
somebody
you watch
else do
someone
it.
else do it once, and then that's it.
So you don't know what grip to use.
Yeah, no.
You don't
Yeah, it's only
know
the
how
talk
slippery
of
it's going to
what-
be.
The talk behind the scenes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
so
Have you seen the original series, the Japanese version
no,
of that?
no, I haven't.
It's translated to Ninja Warrior.
My Japanese.
Saisuke.
Something like that. Yeah. Fantastic. I came across it. There's always these like random shows you end up sort of watching on YouTube and like, what is this? And then it's like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah,
and then I
that's-
was watching like 20
Yep.
seasons worth.
Yeah.
But they had for their final, because obviously there's 4 stages in, the obstacle course kind of thing. First one, reasonably hard. Second one, pretty hard. Third one, ridiculous. And the fourth one was just insane. And a few people with the Japanese version had gotten to the fourth one. The fourth challenge back then was a rope climb, a really thick rope. And you had to climb up like a a bell tower thing in like 20 seconds and hit a button at the top. And at the 20-second mark, the rope would detach and you would
I'd
fall
love to watch that. I'm going to watch that tonight.
into a moat with alligators. No. That would detach and you would fall into a big
Then ninjas
thing.
come.
Yeah,
That's
that's right. Yeah,
actually
that's why it was called that.
hilarious.
Your
That's
honor
awesome.
was gone.
Yeah.
But so a couple of guys had got to that stage, but it's they are gripping with their hand and then they're gripping with their legs, and it's like ready go, and they would hands, legs, and they'd get halfway and then thing would detach. They got nowhere near it, and it wasn't until this one guy who was a fisherman who used to like climb over his boat all day, like with his body weight. It was like 60-kilo guy. When he made it to the final round. And they said go. He didn't use his legs at all.
Oh.
He grabbed with one hand, and just ripped himself up with his hands. Got on the top, hit it with like 6 seconds left. He flew up that thing.
Wow.
It's insane. It was crazy.
Wow.
But he became the first winner. And then of course he was invited back to every single one. He's like the celebrity of that now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
That was so
That's
cool.
fantastic.
Yeah, because
That's so
everyone
cool.
else's technique, which is climb a rope, that's how you do it. Use your legs, use your hands. But he was like, screw that. I'm just using my arms. Like, I've got to get up there. And he
So
did.
afterwards, everybody's trying to do it that way. I'm guessing that
Well,
was
if somebody, I don't know what it's like with every other version, but with the Japanese one, if somebody conquered it, then they would change it and make it harder.
Yes, that did happen this season.
Oh, really?
That did
Yeah.
happen this season, yeah. So,
So how did you get involved in that in the first place? You saw it on TV and went, "Oh, I want to do it," or
Actually-
you get a phone call saying, "I saw you on a kayak."
Actually,
You
no,
said,
I remember
reckon you're
this
pretty
real
good
well.
at this.
No, I remember it real well. I was watching it with funnily enough, we're talking about this one. My ex on TV, American Ninja Warrior came up. I said, "That's going to come to." This was before it was ever in Australia. I'm like, "That's going to come to Australia, and I'm going to be on it." And this guy's like, "That will never come to Australia, and you're never going to go on that show." And
the
he
way-
came to Australia the next year,
Do,
and I
do I
went
look
on
good
it.
in
Yeah,
it? Do I look big?
Do I look big?
I then told him he was a skinny nut. Yeah,
Still
so
training?
that's pretty much why.
How's
That's
his
actually
calves?
why I applied. It was only because of that conversation. That was the only reason.
Wow. And so it was an application process,
Yep.
and then you get a phone call from the producers, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
at some stage.
I think they changed my story when I was on there.
Wow.
I told them why. I think the story we went with was like, I'm going to they wanted me to say, I never said it, but like they wanted me to say, I'm going to go to the Tokyo Olympics and win gold for Australia, but first I'm going to make it up the Ninja Warrior wall. And I said, listen, I'm not going to say that because no.
Yeah.
But I said something like, I hope one day I can represent Australia at the Olympics, and I can't wait to give this a go.
Cool.
Yeah. And then I went flying off the second obstacle. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Did they overdub your voice with like
If they did that, I'd be gutted. I'd be like, no, that's not me. That
in
ain't
Japan,
me.
though?
Yeah, no. That would be pretty good.
what was the obstacles? So the first one
Mm-hmm.
is the steps, like, what,
Yeah, this is back in Series 2. So I've done Series 2 and Series 5. Series
Right.
5 is currently airing. Series 2, the first thing I noticed was the steps were super far apart.
yeah.
They were so much wider apart in real life than they look on TV. And I
Yeah.
just remember thinking, shit, I hope I don't fall off these. I was worried. But I had so much fun. I had so many friends come to support me. I had friends from Queensland, Sydney, and Adelaide come to support me.
Wow.
I had a great, actually one of the media lady, Laura from canoeing, came to watch me. So she was part of the organisation who came to support. So that was pretty good. That was very, very great.
Did you hire like a Polish person just to yell at you whilst you're doing it? Just to,
Maybe that was my mistake. If I had my coach there, actually,
just somebody's uncle would have been fine. Yeah.
how's this? No, another kayaker, one of the kayakers from the sports institution went on it, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, that's awesome!" But my coaches were furious that I went on the show. They were like, "How could you do that? Like, oh my god, you could have got injured." But then they were totally fine for the guy to go do it. I'm like, come on.
So the
Sexist.
steps are the first. The second one,
This is the one I went flying off. It was a bungee. It was a
Right.
bungee, and then you had to. The bungee went down, and they told me before I went on there, like, hold the bungee at the top. And I thought to myself, they're definitely trying to stuff me up. I'm going to hold the bungee at the bottom because they obviously want fewer people to succeed to get to the next round. But you know what? I should have just trusted them. So that's literally what stuffed me up was I held the very bottom thinking in my head somehow, like, if I hold it from the bottom, it's got less way to stretch. which was dumb because it's a bungee, it's not a piece of rope. So if I'd heard it at
you
the
went
top,
to medical school. Yeah.
Yesterday on a live radio interview promoting the push-up challenge, I made a massive medical error talking about my torn labrum. They're like, so tell us about the labrum. I'm like, yeah, it's the back, because my GP had described it as the back of the shoulder. But the labrum's part of your, like, it's part of the ball and socket joint, so it's got nothing to do with that. And I just remember thinking, the best thing I learned in that year was how to wash my hands. Like, that was the one thing we did over and over again, that I'm just like, during COVID, I'm like, all right, guys, this is how you wash your hands. Happy
Infection control.
birthday. No.
Yes. So, and that would be frustrating though with Ninja Warrior. That's what I sort of think when I watch it, that this person's, they've done the intro, they've given a bit of a backstory, and 2 seconds in, they're done. And it's like, on to the next person.
Genuinely.
And you feel vested. You feel vested.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
she was going to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
I was really going for her. I hope she was going to do well. And now she's gone from our lives.
Yeah. Well,
we should be back maybe season 5.
Funny that. Yeah, I had grand plans for my return to Ninja when I was going to do it. But I actually had so much fun. I met amazing people. Like, the people who do it are awesome. Made some great friends from different sports. One of the guys who did the AIS sports draft, who got in for a combat sport, I think he did jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
He is really good at Ninja Warrior. He does a great job.
Makes sense.
Josh, I've forgotten his name. Josh O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
He smashes it. He's an incredibly talented ninja. And he was, so he's from the sports draft as well. So it's pretty cool to even have some AIS people out there.
Are you allowed to give it a go afterwards? Like after
No.
it's all said? Oh, really?
So we were filming on Cockatoo Island and we almost went back. Like, we were glamping. No, I was so close to doing it. Me and a few of the other people.
Got the kayak out.
Yeah. We were gonna go back because they didn't have any security around it. We were literally gonna go back, but then I'm like, I might die if I fall off something. Yeah, that's the main thing. Risk assessment.
How do you think you would have gone on the next one if you'd made the bungee?
On that one? Oh, the next one was easy. So they try and wipe a lot of people off on the second obstacle. Then they try and wipe a lot of people off on like the fourth one. So if you make it past the second, it's like who's quickest through the third. I think the third may have been a running one, and I think I would have been okay. It was like lower body strength.
Right.
So I think I would have been fine. But I had so much fun because right before I fell off, and this is probably a reason why maybe I wasn't doing so good, I was very invested in the crowd. Because as a rapper, I was like, this is my best opportunity to get a crowd going. So I'm like, can I get an Aussie, Aussie, Aussie? And then I've got like the whole, like all these people in Cocktail going, oi, oi, oi. And then I'm like, Aussie, 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 oi. And then woo. And I did a backflip. I was on Fall of the Week. That was like my highlight. So I felt like I did a good job because, I had it felt like I was flying through the air. The momentum I had, and I did do a backflip. So I was like, if this bottle of Balance Cleanse water was my body,
straight to camera,
this being my face. So I approached the bungee like so, held it too low, and then I went Aussie, 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 oh. And then I went,
whoa.
And then like that.
Wow.
Into the water.
Into water. Oh, good. Because I was just thinking, I hope it was
the
water.
Alligators, mate.
Yeah. Ninjas.
That was it just popped in my head. The first UFC, the first one.
They had alligators.
No, I'm serious. They literally were considering, because it was supposed to be this freak show event, right? And they wanted, one of the ideas that came up.
I didn't even want it. Animal cruelty.
Was to have a moat around the octagon with live alligators in it. That was one of the ideas.
That actually would have been awesome if it wasn't
cool.
too loud.
Dana White,
actually, I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that
Steve
is pretty
Maxwell's
sick.
idea.
As long as they're happy alligators.
Maybe just for any Jake Paul fights in future, maybe just something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Solid idea.
So how was it? So you get on there and then you decide I want to go. How do you get back a second time? I would imagine that'd be even harder than getting on the first time.
Yeah, it really is.
Did they just forget your details and?
No. See, this is why my run wasn't.
Or did you go with a
aired.
different name with a different IP address?
VPN. You used a VPN.
You just got a VPN for the first time. So me and my friend who actually appeared on it with me, he's a great friend from school. We used to do like random runs, like 100-kilometer relays together. So we've got a good athletic background together. We both got to do Series 2 together, which was really good fun to have your schoolmate there. It was like unreal experience to be on Cockatoo Island as a ninja. There's a lot of hype around it. It's a great atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I think he sent me the application. He was like, do you want to do it again? And I always thought if I go back, I'm going to be really training for it. I don't want to go back and just come off the second obstacle because you do get judged for it. I did get a lot of judgment for it, which at that time did affect me because I was younger, but now it doesn't. I don't care. Say what you want to say. You couldn't armchair warriors. You know, you're gonna come and give it a go.
Easy to criticise, hard to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've seen some great quotes about criticism. Yeah, which is great. Anyway, probably not appropriate for me to say. I was going to say it, but I'm like, no. Anyway, so then we put in the applications, and it was actually really hard to get on this season, which was quite interesting. So for returning ninjas, one of the guys from Adelaide who goes back quite a fair bit, he literally made up that he got into skateboarding so that they would put him on the show again and give him another chance. I'm like, that is so funny. Like, he's like, he rocks up with the skateboard. He's like, oh, I'm like, oh, so you took up skateboarding? He's like, yeah, I actually just did this, so I'd come back.
Like, just ride the skateboard.
No, that's actually what happened. Actually, it was quite funny
right.
overhearing what the camera crew was saying about his skateboarding skills. It was quite amusing. But no, he does a good job. He's a decent. I couldn't stand up on a skateboard, so
that's right.
Has your run aired for this season?
No. So get this. So I go up for my second run, and then
Are you allowed to say this or not?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
it's happening now.
Okay.
So it's currently airing. So the first episode was on Sunday.
And when,
that would have
will
been
you
my
pop
episode.
up?
No, that would have been my
Oh,
episode.
it would have been.
Yeah.
Oh, it would have been on.
So this is quite funny. I'm actually grateful, that it wasn't. But
Oh, now I'm intrigued.
Right.
Yeah.
yes. So I got into a fight. I beat someone. No, just kidding, guys.
With an alligator in emotion.
Yeah.
Who told you about the alligator? No, I got up. So they call out and announce you, and they're like, "This is Isabella Rossitano. She is a ex-canoeist turned boxer." Like, accidentally called me a pro boxer, and I'm like, definitely not boxing fan right now. But anyway, they go, "She is everyone give it up for first-time Ninja Warrior rookie Isabella Rossitano. This is the first time she's done it." Blah blah blah, and I'm like, "Oh well." So they somehow the productions changed hands and they didn't remember that, so they couldn't air it because I had been on the show before. And they screwed up
Your intro.
I mean, they could have just, I don't know,
Could
done
they
a
just dubbed
voiceover
it
or
over?
something.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Sucks.
but
How did
Yeah,
it
you'd
go?
imagine.
I'm actually happy because I wanted the second time I go back there to at least get to the third obstacle and do better. And because I hadn't been having that goal in my mind, I definitely hadn't been training specifically for ninja. And ninjas do train, like the people you see who make semifinals, they are all training all the time.
Wow.
It is a sport for them. So they go to
Right,
train at
okay.
specific ninja gyms and they're very serious about it. Doing season 5 after season 2, it's like going from like people who take this like me so much for fun, enjoy it, like once in a lifetime experience, like why the hell would I do that? It's pretty random. But now it's like a dead serious sport. So
Like,
the
dudes
culture's changed.
faking being skateboarders to get
Yeah.
in. Like,
Yeah,
it's serious.
exactly. It's dead. It's cutthroat. So the environment's
Right.
changed a bit, and it's like still the same awesome people are there. It's still fun, but it's less.
There's
It's
an
definitely less
edge.
fun, and it's more competitive. So for someone like me who isn't training all year round, it's not fun. Like if you're there for fun, everyone takes it serious. It's not.
Right.
So I do plan to go back and have a great go, but I've got other things to prioritize right now, and it's not a focus. Definitely not. So.
And to find these ninja gyms, you have to decipher a series of clues, each more difficult than the last.
Yes.
Only appears at certain times.
Yeah, we don't really have any in South Australia. We do have Latitude, which is a fantastic gym to go to.
Right.
But
Bounce.
in Sydney,
Yep.
Bounce, in Sydney, there's a lot of great ones up there, and in other cities too. Yeah,
Awesome.
so that's my ninja story. But the reason we were talking about ninja was that's where. So I reached out to this athlete. So she's one of the best boxers in Australia, like amateur. And I was like, I can't remember, but I just started a conversation like, well done. I think I just said well done on your gold medal, like after the Commonwealth Games. Anyway, then we became like Instagram friends.
Oh.
And then we met the first time we actually met in person was on Ninja Warrior.
Wow.
So that was a pretty cool way to meet her.
Yeah.
And we're actually hoping to make, to do some sustainable gym wear and to do a clothing line one day. So
Awesome.
she's an artist. She's very talented, and she started when she was 22 or 23 years old into boxing. And she won gold in 2018. So that makes her, I don't know, like late 20s when she won her gold medal. And she was very close to making it to Tokyo. So if she can do it, she inspires me. And I believe I can still make it as a 25-year-old starting out. But I think more so it's definitely, it's just about I've been lucky to be having a number of training years behind me.
Absolutely.
Because I did get a lot of injuries beginning in canoeing because I was jumping into a training regime that people with 5 years of training experience had been doing.
Yeah.
And I did not have that level of strength and conditioning training behind me. So I think that was one of the reasons I was predisposed to having injuries, which took away from my training time. And now those years will be cut out of, say, a general 25-year-old girl who wants to take up boxing. Like for a general 25-year-old, it'd be harder to do those things, I think,
Yeah, absolutely. Like, well, I think something happens to you as you kind of, when you come out of adolescence and into early adulthood, like basically the body that you've got there is relatively easy to maintain as the years go on. So you've got your tendon strength, everything's kind of there and in place, and then you can build around a specificity around your functionality. And
exactly.
Yeah, and with boxing, it seems that, well, what kind of, are you coming across any injuries in the transition to boxing from kayaking? Like, are things emerging now that are niggles that weren't before when you were on the water more?
Yeah, definitely. I think, unfortunately, the one thing I've noticed, and it came up like June, and at least with training experience, anyone listening, you learn to work out when you're about to get an injury. So you learn a niggle is something to address as soon as it's a niggle, address it. Don't want it to take away from your training time. So for me, I knew my shoulder was an issue around June last year. I flagged it with my physio, and then unfortunately November was real bad. Like that's when it started the clicking. And now I need to do this to kind of get some sort of relief every now and again.
Yeah.
But, I've been trying to work on getting that diagnosed through a number of things. So my GP is suspecting it. Oh, God, I hope I didn't miss my appointment with a surgeon.
Just occurred.
Shit. I think it may have been today. I had an appointment with a shoulder surgeon. I hope that wasn't today. And that was about my shoulder, believe it or not.
Yeah.
My right shoulder. So he suspects.
And that's exacerbated, from the canoeing, but now with the different movement?
Yeah, what I reckon is being in such a one-sided position canoeing, I reckon now my thing is maybe I was just evening out. So my body is so used to doing the same movement for years that now doing this different movement is like,
yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know, but Doc says it may be a torn labrum. Yeah.
You could box with just one arm, maybe. Maybe that's your thing. Maybe.
I just swapped to southpaw. I started out at southpaw.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But just
I
naturally.
love switching though.
There's that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal that came out called Southpaw, and he boxed conventional the entire movie until the last punch when he went and stepped into Southpaw punch.
I watched that movie.
How could you call that movie Southpaw? And it's like he's in conventional stance the whole movie. He's in conventional stance.
It's funny you say that.
Was there nobody on set? Was there nobody?
And then it's like
so
one
funny.
punch.
No,
one
it's
punch
so
in
funny you
Southpaw.
say that. So the whole point of this movie, this is anyone listening, Southpaw, I rated a 2.5 out of 5. That's maybe a bit high, maybe a 3 out of 10. I'm not sure.
Gyllenhaal looked pretty good though. He was really ripped. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've
he
seen
did
it.
look
He
good.
did commit,
Yeah,
and
I'm
he
not
was
gonna
very shredded in that film. Can I just talk quickly about the? So I put on. We had an arm wrestling thing on Monday night, and it went for 4.5 hours.
This is after 2.5 hours training
That's
the night
right.
before, yeah.
And the super match as well.
Yeah, the super match.
So it was Durham Gym where I'm working at the moment.
I saw that.
Yeah, they had their first birthday celebration thing, and
Happy
managed
birthday,
to-
Dermot.
Yeah, absolutely. Managed to
That's
sneak the arm wrestling table in and say, "Yeah, can I just?" Yeah, sure, okay. Wasn't sure exactly how it would go because a lot of people we talk about that ego thing in gyms, and I think the same thing that always seems to happen. Girls will come up first.
Really?
And then, after the guys sort of, what's going on? Okay. And they'll see that, I'm letting somebody work and I'm explaining how, I'm not just pinning people. Then, we had guys started coming up and it just flowed on from there. And it was like, next person. It was great. I had a great time. I started losing my voice. Like,
what were you doing? Screaming at them? No, this is how you do it.
You're doing it wrong. Go that
You
way.
use the rolling method.
That's right. Because they had, exactly.
That's a good Gunters.
That was great. Trained secretly under Gunters. Because they had some DJs in as like some special guests, the music was 10 times louder than normal. It was like a nightclub level. Just yelling,
Classic.
no, go backwards, and it was like 3 hours later, I've got no voice. But fantastic. It was great. And it's really fun seeing how somebody can step up to the table and the level of strength that they've got. They might be really strong, but you're not feeling anything because of the way that they're pushing. But after 5 minutes of just explaining where you can put your leverage and everything like that, the strength level increase, it's up 10 times. It's crazy. It's just like, I'm going to stop teaching you now because I'm really struggling. So, it was fun. And we had a good time. I just wanted to highlight that. It was like, yes, it was good. And now my arm is sore because it was 7.5 hours
awesome.
of training.
No, that's fantastic to hear. That's really good.
That was good fun. So Sunday, you have to come along.
I do want to come down wrestling. I mean, after hearing about the 10K prize, I think, 10K, that's
significant.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, that was for over the top.
That's right.
Over the top competition. Yeah, coming up in. So there's a range of big calendar events that are coming up in the world of combat sports over the next several weeks.
Isabella Rostano will be fighting Logan Paul
I'd say
at the
Get your
Gardens.
pay-per-view
What's the
now.
Gardens? Which garden? Madison Square Gardens.
Yeah, you're all booked in. Already to go.
I don't even need to
doesn't
train.
know.
I don't need to train.
I had no idea you're going to medical school,
first.
but that came up today. So, I mean, I don't know what's coming out of your mouth.
It's like a therapy session.
Yeah. So
Tell us your entire life story. I feel like that's what I've just done.
Yeah. Do you feel better, though?
The weight has been lifted off your shoulder.
We'll just say that. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, of course. I love to talk about my biggest life regrets. It always makes me feel good.
It's always good to get these things out publicly.
For the first time, I don't talk about it with anyone, but here it is
We'll
out
talk
on
about
this.
it with anybody who wants to hear.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's right. Well, DFC 12 is at the Adelaide Oval 1st of August. Now, because of the whole COVID thing developing in New South Wales and the effects of the shutdowns in Victoria, obviously making any matchups in the combat sports world right now is so difficult because it's not just a matter of the timing of the events, but the training and the lead up for the athletes. That sponsor again.
I was just thinking about balance.
Oh, were you?
It always brings a smile to my face.
Everything was there apart from the spray of water that I was
Yeah, I
expecting.
was about to. Yeah, that's what made me laugh. Sorry. So Diamondback Fighting Night. Let's talk about that.
1st of August.
It's 1st of August.
1st of August.
DFC 12 at the Adelaide Oval, and people can buy their tickets now on diamondbackfc.com.
Great.
There's some VPI. VIP.
VPNs.
They can get VPNs. We don't have a sponsor yet, do we? But they can get VIP tickets now and reserve their tickets. But the matchups are really difficult to make at the moment, and several of the top fighters, of course, are a little bit stuck due to circumstances outside of their control.
So you're stepping in, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I'll be ready. Obviously, super heavyweight. And
We will be supporting you, Dave, every step of the way.
I'm in the Dad Bod Challenge.
Right.
Yeah, so
Main event, heavyweight title fight.
no conditioning, no cardio required.
Who needs that,
it should,
really?
Should be great. DFC 12 Adelaide Oval. Now, our guest this evening was to be Carly Gangel. Carly's a figure in the combat sports world, as we all know, and is running Pride championships at the moment. So now, similarly, her day was tripped over today because of the COVID, the shutdown in the border with New South Wales and the restrictions that have just gone in place there. So 3 of her biggest fights have just all of a sudden fallen through.
That's tough.
It's tough, and
We feel for you, Carly.
Yeah, and for a local promotion, there's an enormous amount of investment in time and money. Her MC and ring announcer wasn't able to make it and so cancelled. And this is all going on the 24th of July. So from what I understand, our thoughts are with you, Carly. We hope it's all panning out tonight. And we know that you're on the phones right now trying to pull the whole event together. So we wish you well with it. But 24th of July. From all the information that Carly shares with me, she will be doing everything in her power to put on a world-class event on the 24th of July, regardless of COVID. So she's looking to get those fights pre-booked and get matchups that the crowds will absolutely love. So 24th of July, and people can find out more by heading over to a Pride website.
That's Muay Thai only?
Muay Thai kickboxing, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. No, she's world champion. So, yeah.
So we can't wait to have you in the studio, Carly. So Carly was meant to be here today, but we'll be here next week. Another guest that's coming up on the podcast who will be appearing in our next episode will be Steve Maxwell. And for those that are familiar with the Joe Rogan podcast, you might well have come across Steve Maxwell on a few occasions already. He's also featured on Brian Rose's London Real podcast and hundreds of others over recent years. So Steve shares a really interesting perspective. He's been voted one of the top 100 personal trainers or strength and conditioning coaches, to be more specific.
So he's my competition.
Of all time. Yeah. So he's, I shouldn't perhaps say, but he's definitely in his 60s now, 63, 64 years old. He looks terrific. He's in tremendous shape. His first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in North America. He went and stayed with the Gracies. He picked up more than just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whilst he was there, very much a way of life and a way of eating. But before he got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he was a very high-level wrestler, a national. In America, I think a lot of people kind of don't quite get how big wrestling is at a high school and at a college level.
Yeah, very interesting.
So he was a national level wrestler, a smaller guy. Didn't really like the punching sports. His dad tried to get him into boxing early, but found with wrestling that was really his way in. Being a smaller guy, he enjoyed that, and then of course fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and even introduced kettlebell training from Russia to North America. So that he is almost, and on top of that, was an initial investor in the UFC. So, I mean, very much the story of modern combat sports can be found within Steve Maxwell's story as well. So, really looking forward to having Steve on the podcast next week. So, certainly, if you're tuning in today, tune into the live stream for next week. That'll be huge. We're really looking forward to that. And, of course, Carly Gangel hopefully will be back here to tell us all about her massive event that's happening on the 24th of July and more. So thanks so much for joining us once again on the podcast. On behalf of Izzy, Matt and the whole team here, we'll look forward to bringing you a whole lot more next time. And just finally, a word from our sponsors.
Yeah, just a thank you to Balance Cleanse Water, the best water there is.
10% stronger.
10% stronger.
Guaranteed.